Yo, this is Rich Latter from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin' It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin' It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. The young boy Joshua Smith here. On today's show, I'll be reviewing nights 8 through 10 of the G1 Climax 34 and also discussing the overall tournament up to this point. And I won't be doing it alone. Later on in this episode, you'll be hearing dual audio with both myself, Chris Samsa, and Joel and Damon of the Super J-Cast. And that's a pretty lengthy discussion, so we're going to jump into that here in just a moment. I'll also be covering all the latest news in New Japan and answering your questions. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Now, normally we're streaming live on patreon.com. For our Patreon subscribers for the IWGP level, please understand that this week with Jeremy being out, we were unable to air this live, but the make good, we do have guests from Super J-Cast and Chris Samsa on the show for a super special, kind of super New Japan pod. But in the future, we will get that worked out. We will get things figured out. So, stick with us. If you want access to the weekly live stream, ad-free audio, and bonus content, please subscribe at patreon.com/KIStrongstyle. And without any further ado, I'm not going to keep you much longer because it is a lengthy discussion. I'm going to kick it over, and because I was sort of outnumbered by those guys, I'm going to let them drive, and you'll get the thoughts of both myself, Chris, Damon, and Joel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Super J-Cast. I'm Joel, joined by Damon McDonald. It is Monday, the 5th of August, 2024. This is episode 322, and it's a very special one this week. It's the G1 Supercast. As you all know, we are very lazy men on the Super J-Cast, and it does get hard to come up with interesting takes for the middle of a Grade 1 climax. So we've enlisted some help this week, and one of our guests, I know, is planning to attach this audio to the additional solo podcast he's going to record. So ideally, he's going to want a nice clean edit where he can slide that in seamlessly to the episode he uploads. But after many heated arguments about what to call this piece of audio, I feel that it is our duty to sabotage it for him by making constant references to the Super J-Cast. You're listening to the Super J-Cast. This is Super J-Cast branded audio. Damon, we've got to sprinkle this liberally throughout the recording, interrupting our guests wherever possible to let listeners know that this is the Super J-Cast, and just either have our guest admit defeat or face an absolute nightmare of an edit. Now, this could just be me doing a bit, or we might actually go ahead and fuck with the discussion. We like to keep people on their toes, so I'm going to leave a nice little gap here for the initial edit before I introduce everyone. Here's a special G1 Climax Roundtable audio with myself, Joel of the Super J-Cast, joined by Damon McDonald, also of the Super J-Cast. We've probably lost half the Reddit listenership there. Hello, Damon.
Hi, everyone. Hi. We're excited because this is a historic day for us with our very special guests. One, if I'm not mistaken, I did a solo show with when Joel was away. But for the first time, gracing our airwaves and sharing the podcasting space, it's the great Josh from Keeping It Strong Style. What's up, brother?
Good job now, Damon. You're
sorry.
Hey, guys. I'm glad to be here. It's fine that you are trying to, capitalize and bogart the, branding space because I'm going to be recording my own intro to this show, and I'm going to say whatever the fuck I want leading into it, and our listenership is going to, so.
No, this is not going to be good. Hey, and so while we're here, again, Josh from the great Keeping It Strong Style is joining us, as well as
you ruined my bit as well, Damon. I had a little background and everything. You fucked it.
Oh, gee, I will do it. Do it.
Audio.
Okay. Do it. Go.
I was going to say we have the best Josh in the New Japan podcasting community. And now my little dig has just been ruined by you. So let that be hanging on your conscience. Anyway, I'm going to introduce our final guest. Last, certainly not least, we have the Stats King himself from SportProWrestling.com. It is Chris Samsa. Hello, Chris.
Oh, hello. I don't have an association except my own, so you can say whatever you want, and it won't bother me, and I don't have to mess around with weird intros or uploads. I just get to stop recording and go back to my life whenever we're done. So,
what a lucky guy.
It's a blessed life to always be the guest. Let me tell you.
No doubt. Let me ask you a question. How many requests do you get around this time of year? Like, can we say, no, don't tell us. How about this? Let's set the over under.
Sure.
I'm going to set the over under at 6. Over or under, Josh?
Oh, me?
No, well, how many does Chris get? How many does
gotcha.
Chris get?
Wait, what's the time? Are we talking the whole G1 tournament?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
From like preview to review? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm going to say 6.
It depends. In the past, it was probably more, and then for a while there during the pandemic, it was probably less. And now I would say like, let's say 8.
8. Ooh. Joel?
I'm not going to guess. I have a follow-up question. How many of those do you actually turn up for?
Well, let me tell you. I tell you what. I show up for anything that I actually commit to. So if I tell you I'm going to be there, I will absolutely be on the call or on the video wherever you need me. I will respond to emails and to Twitter messages if that needs to change, or if y'all need to change the schedule. So. That's what I will say about how many I actually turn up to, is any that I commit to. But
wow, unlike some people we know,
I don't know anything about that.
I forgot I was on the petty cast.
The last minute requests just kept on coming a couple weeks ago. Let me tell you.
Really?
So over 6, definitely. Yeah, definitely over 6. There's a few that are kind of assumed. So like Keeping It Strong Style and Speaking of Strong Style, they can kind of pencil me in usually. And then I like to try to do everything I can just to get out there and say hello to people, especially this year with the contests and the G1 Pick'em and Sport of Pro Wrestling kind of working its way up. So we had some stuff to actually talk about and promote. So I did a little promo, and I kind of kept it limited. I just did like 3 or 4 intro podcasts this year, and now I'm on this, which is a really, really special event. I wedged myself into this. So, but yeah, people ask, and if I can make it, I make it work. I've got a 4-month-old baby now, so it's a little harder for me to wedge the time in this year, but I think I've gotten out there as much as I can, and I'll do some stuff through the fall too. I think I'm going to try to hit up some new spaces. So, but yeah, I always love to jump in with the Super J Cast. I think the only time I was on J Cast with the time we did it, Damon, or
I think Joel, so.
Joel, you and I have done something together, right?
Yes, we have. We've done an episode of the J Cast.
We did. Oh, okay, yeah, okay, great, good.
When was that? When did you guys get to it?
Fucking hell, what's going on here? Both of you've forgotten.
I don't know. I'm asking. There's a lot that goes on in my head.
Wait, when did we do it?
When did you do it? Are you sure it was him?
I don't know. We definitely did one though.
We did a thing
with. Make me open up the podcast thing.
We did a thing with the draft. That draft podcast was that. That's
no. We've definitely done a J-Cast episode.
I believe you.
Are you sure? I don't. I don't think it's ever happened.
I sort of believe you. I feel like that might have happened. I did have the thought before I logged in today.
We did a review of Royal Quest 2, so it was episode 331 of the J-Cast. That was in October 2022.
Wow, that's legit. I'm sure that happened.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I couldn't even tell you what was on that show. Do you have it? If you could quickly remember off the top of your head, no looking, what was the main event of that show?
Royal Royal Quest 2?
Electric Boogaloo.
That was FTR and
Oh, yeah.
Wow, look at you guys.
Aussie Open.
Aussie Open. And then it had some Ishii and...
Suji.
Yeah,
Suji.
he was a late replacement, wasn't he?
Yes.
I don't even. I have no recollection. All right, and that's par for the course. All right, Joel. I'm sorry. This is going to be tough with 4 people, and I'm me always wanting to interject.
Of the steering wheel back from
Take
David
it.
before he goes rogue. Although Josh, you have threatened to take the audio rogue as well. Can I ask you a question quickly, Josh? What do you think the Venn diagram of Jcast to Keeping It Strong Style listenership looks like?
It's really hard to say. I think that there's definitely crossover, but there's certainly a wide variety of people that only listen to you guys and only listen to us and don't listen to the other show. So some of them are, hopefully there's more people that listen to this and think it's really cool that we're doing, combined audio, as opposed to people who are like, fuck, you're making me listen to those guys.
Come on. I think here's the thing. I appreciate the fact that there are 2 podcasts that satisfy the
Only 2.
Only 2. There's
just 2.
There's 2. let's clear the air. There's just 2. But again, they're able to kind of check the boxes for their each individual audience. So I kind of dig that. Here's the thing. I just hate the fact that like anybody would like both of us. I want there to be a line. Like, you can't like us and possibly like them, and vice versa, right? It's just impossible.
Well, I know that we have different like audiences just based on the kinds of questions and comments you guys get and the interaction that I see you guys have on Twitter, as well as like some of this. I'm not in your guys' Discord, but I sometimes snaps of whatever you guys got going in there will come my way, and I can just tell it's a totally different fan base of New Japan that you guys circulate in than what we typically do. And honestly, I'm kind of just the talent. I just show up. Jeremy does mostly everything as far as like communicating with people in our stratosphere or whatever. So I don't even really know who the fuck listens to Keeping It Strong Style. I just know it's a lot of people, but I don't know who they are.
We don't know. Our Discord. Let's be very clear, Joel. We have a pack of animals. They are just the worst. But here's what I like about them. They're a loyal worst. So if they're going to be the worst, they're going to be loyal. So I do appreciate that. But yeah, trust me, I can't tell you how many times I've hopped on into our own Discord and been like, fuck this, I'm lighting it on fire.
You're banned from our Discord, David. You're not allowed.
I'm banned from our own Discord. How about that? What does that tell you? That's the kind of fucking people we're dealing with. All right, cool. All right, again, Joel, please, the boat is yours.
Right, so before we get into the G1 stuff, a new fan behaviour edict has been announced. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there have been a lot of local fans complaining about this, and basically this is about obstructive view. So I don't know if you saw the tweet that's saying it's prohibited to place merchandise such as towels, t-shirts, stuffed animals, etc. on the plastic fence inside the venue. Now that Discord has actually verged into other areas, including people who attend shows wearing baseball caps with the brim turned up, which a lot of people find annoying. And the next complaint was that bald people should also be banned because it doesn't make for a pleasant view and it makes people's photos look bad. So what do you think of the proposal to ban bald people from attending New Japan events?
That's not real, right?
Oh, it is.
It's not an official edict, but there's absolutely been fan discourse about bald people ruining other people's experiences.
Nobody wants to talk over each other. We can't see each other.
Go for it. The floor is yours. I think this is a pressing deep issue here.
That sounds ridiculous to me. I can't imagine that would actually, be put into effect. But at the same time, you guys, especially, both you, Joel and Damon, you guys have both been, in Japan and kind of have a better understanding of what the etiquette is. So I really couldn't say if that's something that's realistic or not. I mean, maybe you guys know. I don't know what Chris thinks.
Not a concern of mine. I have a full head of hair,
yeah.
So if no worries. But sounds a little out there.
I'm the only one. I think I'm it. I'm the fucking golden goose, if you will. And I gotta be honest with you, if they can see around my big fucking fat frame, trust me, the head is the least of their concerns. Jesus Christ. I feel so bad for the people that have to sit behind me. Like, and it's always like the tiniest, shortest person like in the entire fucking country. And I feel so bad. I've offered to move. See, I've done everything because I just feel like just a gigantic Godzilla. I just feel like it. And so listen, bald head. I mean, that's the least of their concerns. But I thought that was
Godzilla is actually well liked in Japan and David.
Oh, my bad. Right, it's a good point. It's a very good point. What is the worst fan behavior that you've ever experienced? And I'll open that up to both Josh and Chris.
At a wrestling show
yes,
or at a... I don't know. I mean, the one time I was in Los Angeles and Yuya Uemura won a match and Jeremy Donovan just lifted me up out of nowhere.
Wow.
We were very excited. I don't know. I don't worry myself with what other people are doing. And that may sound sort of altruistic, but like it's God's honest truth. Like, have a good time, do your thing, stand up in front of me, I'll stand up, sit down in front of me, I'll sit down. Like I don't think that much about it. And I go to like
the
American
teenager who was recruited by the Clout Goblin at the Japan shows to do Brit rest chants. That to me that's beyond the pale. I'm not having that.
It doesn't feel like that's caught on though. So, try
that's
your
because
hardest.
I stamped it out, Chris. I took drastic action to make sure we put a stop to that. We play an important role. We're gatekeepers of the community in good ways.
Well, gatekeeping is good. We've all determined that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like occasionally you have like the one dude that's trying to interact with everyone around them, and no one's kind of taking the bait. But that I don't know. I go to like weird. I don't know. I grew up in like the punk rock world, so like there's not much that can surprise me.
Good point.
So I just sort of I've seen some shit, and literally like nothing throws me off in the live event space. So most of the stuff I go to now is pretty tame compared to the stuff I was doing in my late teens and 20s. So do your chance. I don't know. Keep your clothes on. That's all I really ask. But even if you don't, just stay away from me.
Well, I'll tell you guys, I'm in Florida, so I'm at the, quite a few, not so much recently, but I've been to quite a few of the NXT Largo Loop shows. And let me tell you, those shows are the outskirts of, like freaking mobile home parks and like really, really sketchy areas. And they don't necessarily, and it's here in Florida in the South, it doesn't necessarily attract the, most politically correct type of audience. So
sure.
When the Joshi wrestlers wrestle, there's been all sorts of really, really racist remarks at those. I remember when the guys from Imperium wrestled, there was a guy that got thrown out for doing Nazi symbols.
Fuck.
And then one time a drunk guy got in the ring and he got murdered by Kyle O'Reilly. He literally kicked this dude's head off and he
Good.
Yeah, so I've seen quite a few things here and there.
It's amazing because I hate everyone at wrestling shows. Everything annoys me. Every person doing dumb chants. I just hate. I think I'm the polar opposite of Chris on that one. But yeah, that's just nutty. I just hate that.
You just gotta buy the VIP seats.
That's what I do. That's unfortunately. Yeah, I can't sit anywhere else. Yeah, I will pay the top dollar for that keep me away from people experience. That's my experience. Well, keep me away.
Last time we were at a wrestling show together, we all stood in the back and got drunk together. So there was that.
That is very true. That's very true. That is very true. And then I think the last time, Chris, we met up was G1. So speaking of G1, Joel, that's a perfect segue for you. Boom.
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely seamless.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Grade 1 Climax, overall thoughts on the tournament so far. What have been your biggest takeaways, Chris?
I think it's been high floor, and I think the ceiling is raising every couple of shows. I think they're hitting a stride here. So, right, we're what, 10 events in? Yeah, 10 events in. I think most of those events have been really, really good pro wrestling shows. I think that I think a lot about kind of how to correlate what the G1 is to like the outside world, right? Because that is kind of a part of my thing. So to me, the G1 is an album, right? Music album, right? It's a full album. It's a work that goes from beginning to end. It has the liner notes, which is probably akin to like the backstage promos. Every kind of event is a different song, and every match is sort of a different piece to each song. And that's the puzzle, right? And I don't think that anyone can really gauge what the quality of a G1 until the actual end of it. I think there's a generation behind me that's coming up that is, they don't know the glory of like a wonderful music album. And they know singles, and they know 30-second snippets for their TikTok, reels. And like, this is not old man, yells at clouds. Like, that's the reality of it. And the music industry knows that. And like, each of those matches in the G1 is kind of a TikTok snippet, right? And what we haven't had is that viral TikTok snippet in this year's G1, but we've had a lot of really good songs, and I think we're building towards a really great album. But I think what we're seeing the discourse around for most people, or for a lot of people in the space right now, is that we haven't had that viral sensation snippet. And I think it's coming. I think there's been a lot of stuff that's close to it, but I don't think we can say that we've had that moment yet. But I think there's been a lot of really good matches. I think there's been a lot of really good events, and I think we are building towards a really great full G1, but I don't think we'll be able to know that until it's over.
What a great analogy. Oh, I swear to God. What a great analogy. What digestible. Unbelievable. Great job by Chris. All right, Josh, beat that one.
I'm probably not going to try to wax as poetic as Chris, but, just to kind of keep it simple, I do think that there is, a negative perception about the quality of the shows and the quality of the matches that's not truly reflecting what we're seeing in front of us. I think it's part of like a lagging perception that the company's cold, right? So people feel that way, so they're down on the product. Even though, in my opinion, I feel like this tournament has been a turnaround, a collection of events where they've been really, really good. Now, I'll admit, I think that I was a little devastated that nights 7 through 10 weren't necessarily the highest quality, but then again, it's right in the middle of the tournament. You sort of expect that. But I knew we were all recording together, and I was like, fuck, these are not like great shows necessarily. But prior to that, I felt like we were seeing a collection of awesome G1 nights, which we haven't seen the likes of this since, like 2019, 2020. So it is sort of a return to form. And this perception that they're not having great classic matches, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that what I'm seeing on Cage Match, what I'm seeing on Twitter, is just more of like a mindset that people feel like the company's cold, so they're down on it, when in fact we're seeing quite a few really, really, really great matches. There's a lot of good story arcs going on. And this is the most unpredictable tournament in probably since like 2012. Because even at this current time, like, everybody's still alive and nobody knows who those top 3 guys are going to be from each block. Yeah.
The one thing I always, and again, I have had people in my life that have hopped into New Japan, hopped out, have been massive fans, and that has cooled off for all the reasons that we all know. And it's do you think that the unpredictability plays a positive factor in those fans kind of returning to the fold, in that a lot of times I get I don't know who that person is, or that person's now a main eventer. So is it just the match quality that will help bring those people back, or is it just keep the pace, keep the keep the pattern in which we're going, and eventually they will come back because it's bound to be great?
I think, yeah, unfortunately, like, these guys got to kind of kill themselves like all those dudes did between 2016 and 2019, Yeah. We need a return to form, because that's what, drew people initially, and then they stuck around for the compelling storylines and the compelling characters.
Yeah. I always think about G1s and how people just hone in on that certain time frame, and rightfully so, in the sense that it is arguably some of the greatest pro wrestling in the history of this great sport. But I feel like there are a lot of bills being paid now, especially when it comes to your Naitos. Yeah, and obviously Tanahashi's not in it, but and again Okada's not in it. But you get those guys that were in the mix when it comes to those fantastic years, and it's like the body just can't do that on a regular basis. Right. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, is it a mindset of, okay, we can't possibly do this every single night, or is it just, hey, you know what? These are new people establishing themselves in a tournament for a lot of people the first time, and let's give them a fucking chance for starters.
I think this tournament, I hope we look back at this tournament and we're looking at something similar to like the 2013 G1, where the output wasn't match of the year, right? Every night. You didn't have this. You had a lot of great matches, of course, right? But I think that's the same this year. It's just they didn't mean as much then as they did in 18, I guess, because the characters hadn't interacted much. The wrestlers hadn't interacted as much. And that's sort of what we have happening here right now, where there's been a lot of turnover within the G1. They tried some different stuff over the last couple of years, and I think that did sort of reduce the perception of the importance of the G1 to the industry of professional wrestling by messing around with the format over the last couple of years. But it also gave them a chance to try a couple guys out that maybe wouldn't have gotten a shot, right? On a positive side. And to give, the young crew had sort of a soft launch into the G1 last year with the changes in format and the changes in time limit and things like that too. So, we're back to 20 wrestlers. We've got a really good mix of generations, I guess, in this year's G1. And I think, I'm hopeful that in 5 or 6 years, we are getting that sort of output back. And you've got guys that are, still fresh and maybe just then hitting their peak that have now had 4 or 5 G1s and a couple of storylines with each other. And they've really kind of sectioned each other off. Like, I think this is that G1. This is that G1 where you look back at it in 5 years and you say, oh, that's the one that began this run. And I don't know if it's going to have the high highs that one did. I mean, how could it, right? Like, that's, again, some of the best professional wrestling of all time was happening in that moment. And, the world is different now in so many different ways. So, but I do hope that, for the New Japan fan base or for the fan base that comes into New Japan during that time, my hope is that this is a tournament that we can point to as a starting point to say, oh, I want to get into New Japan. What should I check out? And you say, start with the 2024 G1 and, whatever that means. Right. And take from there and go G1. I mean, my recommendation is always to go like G1 final to Wrestle Kingdom to G1 final to Wrestle Kingdom. And you're going to be able to keep up on everything that's been going on with New Japan. If you go back in time, and even if you just hit those 2 shows every year, you're probably going to have a good idea what's going on. And I'm really hopeful that this G1 is this generation's starting point.
I mean, let's be honest, that's what me and Joel do anyway. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
The topic we touched on last week was the attendance, and I think since then, the cumulative attendance is a touch lower than it was last year. So, Josh, you first. How much of a concern is attendance for you during this tour?
I don't really pay as much attention to the business metrics as maybe you guys do. Although I would like to be a little bit more entrenched in it. I have looked at some of the numbers, and they are a little bit soft, but there seems to be an up and down swing on the tours this year, like in the first quarter, they were doing really, really well. And then during the second quarter, when Moxley was on top, they had some shows that did well when they were bigger shows. And then they had other ones that, kind of underperformed. The ones in America obviously did really well. And the G1 maybe isn't, quite where it used to be. And it's probably, very much due to the fact that there's no Ospreay, there's no Okada, there's no Tanahashi, there's no, the list goes on. There's no Jay White. and a lot of those big name stars are gone. So it is a bit of a rebuilding period, and that's probably what it's really boiling down to. I would assume more so than anything else.
There's also been a couple of new buildings that New Japan's running their first show in, or their first G1 show in. So I do think that's mostly a negative because it's not a familiar place and there's no history. I think that venue history in Japan is really important. So when you add in 2 or 3 new buildings, sometimes the building's the draw, right? I mean, we're seeing it with Corkin coming up over the next couple of days. Like, those shows are sold out, like to the brim, sold out, like had to announce that they were sold out and they're not going to have any tickets at the door. So like, and I think the Edion Arena show is sold really well. And I think we saw some good ticket sales in Aichi, just the other night. So I do think that I think that matters. I think that matters in G1, but I also do think that you've got to get into some of these new buildings, and the G1's a great time to do that. So, they only did 1,700 at this new building in Osaka, but it's a beautiful building. So hopefully the next time they come back, they get 22, 20, 2,000, whatever, right? Like, so you got to pepper that stuff in. Right now, I think through 10 events, it's pretty much a dead heat year over year to last year. I think that the tail end of this tournament's probably going to surpass last year, but I don't know. Just because the format's a little different, the drawing power is a little different. You don't have those guys that you can just tag in and say like, hey, I need 4,000 people to show up to this event. Like, they don't really have that main event in this G1, but everything's been slightly up all year. And emphasis on slightly, but up is up. In the current state of things, and I think that's more impressive than anything. To me, it means people want to be in on the ground floor of this next kind of push.
Yeah, I think people like to look at the business metrics, and they'll look at one individual night and they'll sound the alarm bell without. It's sort of like what you mentioned, Chris, when you're talking about like looking at it holistically. I think it's going to make more sense to look at the tour when it's finally over, and then compare, and then you can really kind of get a gauge for where they did well, where they didn't do well, and what the overall impact was business-wise, and where they can improve and that sort of thing.
Right. Now, since we last recorded, I believe Strong Style, you guys finished on night 7 as well. So we got night 8, night 9, and night 10. So rather than go match by match, I'm just going to quickly read through the results, and then I'll ask each of you what stood out for you on those 3 nights. So night 8, we had Tsuji defeating Boltin, Henare defeating Yuya, Cobb defeating ELP, Ren defeating Goto, Finley defeating Takeshita in the main event. Night 9, we had Jake defeating Callum, Greto Khan defeating Evil, Naito defeating Gabe, Sanada defeating Shota, and Shingo defeating Zack. And in night 10, we had Finley defeating Oleg Boltin, ELP defeating Yuya, Cobb defeating Henare, Goto defeating Takeshita, and Tsuji defeating Ren. So, Damon, I'll go to you first. Out of those 3 nights, what stood out to you?
I think everyone. I don't want to speak for everyone, but for me, I'll say, I sat here and said last week, circle Goto. I think he's still got plenty left in the tank. And when you're talking about being in the ring with someone who's in their low to mid 20s, you get. I don't know. I can only speak for myself, but I would think that there might be a little bit of a chip on the shoulder, just to say, okay, let's see if you can keep up. Let's see if you can go. And I was thoroughly impressed. And there's something to be said about an old, grumpy veteran who's still got stuff in the tank and who lets it all out. Does Hiroki Goto give you everything he's got every single time in the ring? Probably. Does he need a dance partner that can really go at this point to allow you to have, as Chris would say, that TikTok moment, that TikTok match? Probably as well, right? Especially a guy who, for the past 2 or 3 years has been, well, I wouldn't say taking a back seat when it comes to the tag team stuff, but and I think it's an equal share of who's carrying the load. He's in a tag situation, right? So to ask someone to give them a tap on the shoulder again to say, hey, you know what? In this match, you got a main event coming here, and what do you say? What do you say? What do you say? You put on a fucking gem like we know you can. I think it's saying something. I don't know. I felt a little proud. I was proud of him And probably I shouldn't be, because he's done everything he can in pro wrestling and then some. But to have a match like that and to keep up and in some cases dictate the pace, I don't know. I had a real warm spot for that. So that's my positive. That's my overwhelming positive. And I would say the thing that sticks out to me the most, and again, we have our goofy thing of Fraud Watch, and some of it is a little tongue-in-cheek, and some of it is a little bit more serious with people than others. I'm worried that it's solidifying my thoughts. And again, Fraud Watch is maybe a bad word. It is a jokey word, but I don't know if my assessment and people's assessment to me about individuals necessarily equate to where we are with them. And unfortunately, I'm speaking about ELP. I'm speaking about Shooter. I'm speaking about guys that were always on that bubble for me of, okay, guys, this is your opportunity. This is the show. Let's see what you got. Come on, we're rooting for you. We want this to happen, and I don't know if it's happened yet. So the positive, obviously, that match in the past 3 nights, but also, and again, not the negative, but the come on, is that there's some guys that I wanted more, and I think a lot of people wanted more, and I don't know if it's even feasible at this point.
Josh, how about you? What stood out for you between nights 8, 9, and 10?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of noticing that they really have a lot of the guys that were trailing at the end of night 7 started getting some wins to get them back on the board. So right now with the booking, we're still at a point where, like, in B block, the lowest point total is like 4. You got Bolton and ELP there, but Finley and Jeff Cobb are, only a few matches ahead of them with like 8 points. So it's still pretty much anyone's ball game over there. So they're making sure to like keep everybody alive. And then on the A block, Zach, he took a couple losses and some big matches. Evil took a loss, and things are not so much as parity based there, but even with the 3 slots open, it's still anyone's ball game. I mean, Jake Lee, Great O'Con, and Callum Newman, they're all at the bottom at 4 points there, and Evil's at the top with 10. There were, even though I felt like these last 3 nights weren't necessarily like standout events, I did like night 8 having the classic retro middle of the G1 presentation with the dimmed lights and the spotlight on everything, and just kind of reminded me of like old G1s instead of like being in these open, bright gymnasiums, which is what we got right back to on nights 9 and 10, which is fine, but sometimes I like that old look, which they did there. And then there were 2 standout matches. The main event on night 9 between Zach and Shingo. Those 2 guys always tear it up. I don't know if I thought that match was as good as some of their previous outings, but it was still very, very, very good. And then the match between Goto and Takeshita was, a lot of people are calling it the match of the tournament. I don't know if I'm in that same camp, but seeing Goto pick up the win over Takeshita, that was definitely like a standout moment of the tournament so far.
And Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I think I expected there to be some separation and in at least one of the blocks where like somebody really falls off and like actually is probably not eliminated by this point, but close. But that has not been the case. Nobody in this tournament is more than 1 match away from 3rd place. So like everyone is still, a threat to move on to that knockout stage. So I expected some sort of separation, but I think what we're doing, usually there's 1 parity block, and J. Michael can probably explain this a little better than I can, but usually there's 1 parity block where like the block is all bundled together and it's dependent on tiebreakers, and then there's 1 block that is more of like a runaway with the top 2,
right,
headed towards that final. This year, it does look like both blocks, at least at this moment, when on August 5th, while we're recording, right before the Corkin shows, they haven't created any separation in either block, which I think is neat. But I also it makes for the kind of figuring the rest of the tournament out a little less fun because there's no figuring to do yet, right? And I think it'll clear last couple of nights, obviously, as to where we're headed and who's still in and all that. But I am surprised that we're really keeping everyone in the middle. It feels a little non-committal, which no one is truly getting the rocket strapped to them via this G1. I think some guys are getting elevated, but it's a ladder. It's not a rocket.
Right.
But Goto's been a highlight, especially recently. I was shocked to see Takeshita lose 2 matches in a row. That feels unprotected. The matches have been great. I think that, I'm disappointed that a guy like Yuya is falling back to the middle. But I'm excited that a guy like Tsuji's going to hopefully go on a surge here, right? So, but I fear that all those dudes are still going to end up in the middle of the pack, and no one's really going to show any dominance. So my eyes are on, very clearly on the booking.
Okay, well, let's talk about the wrestlers then. So we'll go through where they're standing in the blocks, your thoughts on anything you like, really, their performances so far. How do you see the rest of their tournaments playing out? Like, do you have any specific advancement scenarios? How deep do you think they're going to go in the tournament? So we'll start with A block then, where we've got Evil with 10 points, who lost to Great Okan since we last recorded, and his final 3 matches will be Zack, Shingo, and Shota. So let's start with Chris. We'll go back to you. Evil.
I think there's a really good chance that Evil loses out the rest of the tournament. So he got his 5-match winning streak. That's his 3rd 5-match winning streak in the G1. It's just a thing that they like to book. And I think that it's super possible that he goes, he loses his ultimately his last 4 and ends up with 10 points, which still could be in the running. I don't know where that lands, right? Especially given the current layout of that block. But the Evil matches have been Evil matches. I do think they've been a little less egregious than years past and a little more creative. And I think, he is what he is, right? But they've got to make him a threat. It's just I don't want to call it a crutch. It's just what they do, right? So he's got to become a threat, and then he'll taper down, and we'll see. I don't think he's going to make it into the knockouts, but given his final 3 more opponents, I don't doubt that he could go on a losing streak here.
Josh, your thoughts on Evil?
Yeah, I think Chris kind of echoes quite a few of the same sentiments there. One thing I will disagree with, while I do think that Evil has had a little bit better tournament in terms of like what's the word I'm looking for? It being palatable, the matches. I felt like this week was much more of like a regression to the old tropes, and we started to see a lot more of the shenanigans and House of Torture shtick kind of inserted in his matches, which is, it's fine. It's whatever. It's the middle of the tour. But yeah, I am anticipating I don't even know necessarily that he will be one of those top 3 guys. So if other people are surging in that block, it would make a lot of sense to me for him to lose maybe all of them, like Chris said, or maybe 2 of them, and lose a tiebreaker where he doesn't get into the top 3 of the block. I'm not totally sure on that, but of the matches that you listed to me, the one that stands out is the Zack match, because Zack always seems to have Evil's number.
Yeah, that will put them level on 10 points. I think the most instructive match for me there is having Shota on the final night, where they've obviously had some history. And if I'm not mistaken, the last match between them was that the unsuccessful attempt, Shota challenging for the Never title. So I suspect we're looking at a scenario there where Shota is either just spoiling Evil or securing his own place in the knockout rounds. And yeah, like you guys, I think he's most likely to lose his remaining 3 matches, and it'll be weird to lose your last 3 matches and still make it to knockout rounds. But David, what do you think? Where do you think Evil lands?
Yeah, the handwriting's on the wall for that drop off from 10. It would be a nice scenario if he did lose all of those matches and helped establish guys in the process. It is set up for him to, again, with all these wins, to be that heel guy that's going to try to, ruin people's dreams of winning G1 and falling short, and the fans are happy and and everyone is, right? I don't think he's been terrible, and I don't think he's been one of those guys where I'm instantly grabbing for the fast forward button. It's not, and maybe it's just that he has a little bit more pep in his step. Maybe it's just I'm numb to it, but I don't think it's been as just front and center in your face. I'm a heel. We're going to do heel shit, et cetera, et cetera. That being said, I think there is the possibility of that being ramped up as we go further on. I would hope not, but I think that's always on the table. But yeah, I think he's in that perfect, dare I say, gatekeeper heel placement in the block, and hopefully we can have people benefit off of that. But I don't think his tournament's been bad. And in fact, I might go so far as to say I've enjoyed it. Shoulder shrug? I don't know. But it's not been as bad.
I don't want to dig up the whole speaking for the Japanese fan base thing, but it does seem that they get more entertainment out of what Evil does from maybe just a sort of comedic standpoint than Western fans do, because I do seem to notice a more positive reception to what he's doing in this tournament. But again, we'll move on. We've got Zack Sabre Jr. in second place. He's got 8 points. So he lost to Shingo. It looked like he got dropped right on his head or his shoulder at the end of that. That was pretty gnarly. His final 3 matches are Evil, Gabe Kidd, and Sanada. So Damon, will stick with you. Thoughts on Zach and how you think the rest of his tournament plays out?
He was my pick from the beginning. He's been my pick from the beginning of the year, quite honestly. I think the table is there. I mean, he wasn't going to sweep. He wasn't going to go undefeated. I guess current standings point-wise does have me a little bit concerned if we're looking for a pool win, which I am in no way, shape, or form even close to being in contention. But hey, let me collect all the points I can get. I still think he's a front runner for me anyway for Block A. I don't know if necessarily the quality of match has been things where I would moonwalk to watch again. I think the Shingo match is probably his best of the 3. So in the past 3 matches, I think he's had a really good tournament. And I think that there's still stuff left on the table. Personally, I'm looking very, very forward. Very forward, is that the term? Very forward to the Gabe Kidd match. I think there might be something special there. So fingers crossed. I think he's still my odds-on favorite to win the block.
And Chris?
I think I've been a skeptic on Zach this whole time. I know that, hundreds of people picked him to win in the Sport Pro Wrestling poll. But I think he's going to make it into those knockouts. I don't know if that's going to be as the kind of A block winner or as the, one of the, I guess, wild cards, we can call them. He's positioned well. Sanada and Zach have actually had a really good history together of really good matches. So I'm looking forward to that. The Evil match, Zach is a perfect foil for Evil, and that's in Cork and Hall in the semi-main event. I think that'll probably end up being a really enjoyable match. And then, to echo Damon's point, I think the Gabe Kidd match is one that a lot of people are watching just based on the trajectory of both of these guys as the, I guess the top foreigner potential, or the potential to be a player in that space at least. So I'm curious what that looks like. Ultimately Zach has done what Zach does. And I think that's a piece of the puzzle too, is that just like he is so reliable and dependable, and he's so great at what he does that, it's hard to say he's having an excellent tournament because like nothing has really outperformed what you expect from Zack Sabre Jr., but everything he's done has been at the level that you expect from Zack Sabre Jr. So, it's this kind of strange feeling where like, you don't have the high highs or low lows, but like you're getting exactly what you want from him. And I think the potential for him to perform through some of those higher stakes matches is really what I'm keeping my eyes on.
And Josh.
I just want to point out, if you try to go to the New Japan website, it's still down.
Holy moly.
I was like, maybe I can go there and kind of look at what we got on each night while I'm, listening to you guys. And it's like, this thing's still down? Like, how is this possible? Anyways, Zach has, just like Damon, he's been my pick to win the tournament. Although I'm less confident on that as time goes on. And again, it's we've said it on our show a few times where it's like, fuck, if he was to be the winner, puts him in rarefied air, like it puts him on the same level as like Hogan, Andre, and Kenny Omega. Like those are the only foreigners that have ever won the major tournament in New Japan. And I don't know if they see Zach in that way or not. I feel very confident he beats Evil because he seems to always have Evil's number. I think that the match with Gabe Kidd is anybody's ball game, and that is a very, very interesting one for the same reasons that you guys pointed out. But I'm very nervous about that Sonata match because those two guys have a long running history. It's anyone's ball game when it comes down to those two guys, and Sonata's ate a lot of shit in this tournament, and yet at the same time he was champion. Just back in January, he was undefeated in this tournament last year, and I feel like it's very sus that they're both against each other on the final night. People probably don't want to hear this, as uninspiring as this sounds, but I could see Sonata beating him and thwarting his entry into the block, or maybe it's a scenario where they're close to being tied. Zach loses and Sonata secures his spot in the block, and there's a tiebreaker. I don't know, but I think that that's one to keep your eyes on for sure because Sonata has got a long history of beating Zach.
Maybe they could do another double pin.
Oh,
then what happens?
Maybe my least favorite finish of all time in New Japan.
Oh my goodness, great! What you heard are thousands of cars crashing with that bit of news for everyone. Just oh no, oh boy, what are you gonna do?
If it was like one of the young guys versus Sonata on the final night, then maybe I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. That's a stepping stone. It's an accomplishment. Blah blah blah. That makes sense. But for Zach's beaten Sonata quite a few times. Why is Sonata there if not to be a potential spoiler?
Right.
Maybe Sonata's falling into a pit of despair, and they need to highlight that in a high. Again, yes, again. Again, let's try it again. Maybe Sonata's falling into a pit of despair, and they need to highlight that in a kind of a featured match, and that Zack Sabre Jr. match is just the place to do that.
The one thing I will say about this, if they decide to go that way, then the protection that they've given to Zach this year and the marquee win, especially the one over Bryan Danielson, is really wasted at that point.
Fair.
Yeah.
I'm
wonder if there's any long-term planning thought gone into that whatsoever, because you'd expect. I'm still annoyed about that he had that massive win over Danielson, and you'd expect that to be parlayed into an immediate push and use that momentum with all the eyeballs on him. But alas, we'll see. Well, let's move on to Gabe Kidd, who has got 6 points. He lost to Tetsuya Naito, did some colour commentary, and his last 3 matches are Jake Lee, Zach, and Callum Newman. So, Josh, can we start with you? Your thoughts on Gabe Kidd, please?
Gabe is he's had such an interesting tournament because on the one hand it does feel like at least on the Western standpoint the audience is really starting to connect with this guy, and the booking definitely is showing that there's a level of confidence in him, but I don't necessarily have the feeling that they're going to pull the trigger on him just yet. Or if at all, you know what I mean? I don't think that he's going to be one of those guys that gets into the top 3 blocks. That would be a huge accomplishment, and I'd be all for it if it were to take place, but I just kind of don't see it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he also takes a few losses, here in the next 3 days.
Damon?
I'm on the fence in the sense of, he's in the mix, obviously, and they definitely could do something crazy and have him be that ultimate wild card. I I think his tournament has been good, and I think that people are hitching their wagon to him a little bit more and more each and every time he's out there. He, like I said, he does add a tremendous wild card element to every show that he's on. I will say this, and I'll use. I won't even go that far. But I'll just say this. I think, and this is not me saying I don't think he's good at this element of pro wrestling. I just think for his sake, keeping a little bit more of a mystery of him is going to be a better thing in the long run. That being said, I don't want him on color commentating. I don't want him at the table. And the reason is that, like, I don't know, other than getting himself over, like, what else is he adding to that? And I know it's such a small fan base that is, I have to watch the English commentary. I have to, it's still there and it's still important, so let's use everything that we can. I don't know if not only is he the right person for that role, is he doing himself a favor by doing that? And I think keeping him off adds a little bit more. Like, seriously, if you're that much of a fucking nutter, that's my English act, but pretty good, right? Like, why would you be on commentary? Like, why would you?
300
I don't know.
crisp US dollars.
That's true. Well, that's why. Well, that answers that, right? Okay, but you get my point. I don't know. I wish he wouldn't, but I think there's other people that can do that. So that's really my only critique. I think in ring he's been more than fine. Again, he adds an element of danger, an element of keep you on your toes. You don't know what the fuck the dude's going to do. But in the same breath, he's still in the mix. And I think that they do have a talent there. And it might not be this year, but I really, truly do think that he could be a cornerstone of the promotion 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road.
Before you guys kick it over to Chris, I do want to say I agree with you, Damon. I think that that kid on the mic has been a little bit overexposing because he's so heavily character-based. He has to keep his shtick up, obviously. And it would make sense in the context of, like, if he were to come out like the old trope and just call commentary for a match that's involving his rival. You know, you could see someone like The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin coming out and doing that for one match, and they keep it turned on, and then they're gone. But he's sitting there for 5 matches that have nothing to do with him, but his shtick is turned on the entire time, to where I think it's overexposing the gimmick. Honestly,
I'm with you.
Chris, what do you think about Gabe? Do you see him being in contention in the latter stages of the tournament?
I mean, the story with Gabe last year was that he just kept getting in his own way, and they haven't really tapped into that this year, so I'm sort of waiting for that to, like, reappear at a big moment, maybe in the Zach match, maybe against Jake Lee, maybe there's some War Dog movement there, because that's unit to unit, but is Jake Lee really a War Dog? You know, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot going on there, and that's at Corkin tonight, too, so, or tomorrow morning, whatever. What is time? So maybe he's a guy that I think a lot of people want to see go through and have another, you know, elevation or another moment, but I don't know if it's the right time. I don't know that he needs it either. Like, the character's over, the fan base is into him. They honestly want to cheer him, right? Like, the fan base at these shows wants Gabe Kidd to be the babyface. Like, they love the shtick. They love that they've got a madman, right? It's almost like a better, younger version of Lance Archer, where you're like, oh, this guy's wild and kind of funny. And I think it's a great gimmick, and it can go either way. But I really do they're towing the line here, and I don't think Gabe Kidd's trying to be a tweener. So we're kind of in a space where he's going to have to do some dastardly shit to, like, keep it together, right? They did the Shingo thing at the end of the Shingo match and all that. I'm sure you guys talked about that, like that type of stuff. But, like, they kind of need to get the fans off of him unless they're going to run with it in the way of, you know, making him a fan favorite. So, I don't think he's gonna. I think he's gonna trail off here. I think that's my final answer about, like, the outlook for Gabe Kidd.
Well, we've seen the Bullet Club do similar things in the past when guys that are, foreigners and that are kind of booked as under guys, it starts coming to a head and becoming apparent that they're not long for the group, or at least they're slotting in the group, and you kind of have to wonder, like, are we going to see a Kenny Omega situation or an ELP situation?
I think the most instructive thing here is the fact that he's got Callum Newman on the final night, which to me at least suggests that neither of them are going to be in contention. That's going to be probably your opening A block match on that show. But let's move on to talk Shota Umino, who lost to Sanada and will face Naito, Jake Lee, and then Evil. And let's stick with you, Chris. Your thoughts on Shota?
I wish I had more thoughts about Shota, but he's been largely uninspiring for this tournament. So I'm curious what the Naito match looks like, considering their last match. I think putting that in Cork and Hall is a really interesting choice. I've got that one circled.
Can I just jump in? Like, I think there are a lot of parallels between Shota at the moment, and I'm not the first person to point this out, and Stardust Genius Naito. So I'm wondering if there's any intentionality there with having this match showcased, and if they're thinking that far ahead and looking at this Shota thing, thinking this roughneck gimmick is not working, and maybe we can use Naito as like a mirror to reflect that.
I mean, right? They've given him some modified versions of Will Ospreay's moves. They've given him Tanahashi's look. They've given him Jon Moxley's jacket and an attempt at his, attitude and entering through the crowd. And now you think that they're going to give them he's going to run a Stardust Genius run and go hang out in CMLL and come back actually as a star. I mean, like, how many mirrors does this man... I mean, we know he's going to get every opportunity he can to succeed, but who the hell is Shota Umino, right? That isn't some cosplayer of a different wrestler in some way, shape, or form. Like, what is the actual version of Shota Umino that he would be if he wasn't given all these little hand-me-downs, right? I mean, I don't know. I think that's a part of why I'm not connected to Shota. I don't feel connected to Shota Umino. It's because, like, he's different bits of all these great wrestlers, but they're not adding up to being another great wrestler. So I think it's all a swing and a miss. We've got 3 strikes, we're out, and now we're gonna try it again with Naito, maybe. Like, I don't know, man. Like, let's just figure out who this dude is and how he can get over and what he can focus on to, like, really resonate with the crowd that isn't borrowing from someone else. Let's like, what does Shota Umino have that's at all original is what I want to see. And I do fear the same. I fear that. Like, I fear everything that you said is true, that they're now going to try to tap into some sort of Naito storyline, which is basically trying to tap into, like, a Bryan Danielson thing in WrestleMania 30. Like, it's not going to work. That doesn't work anymore. That's not the reality of pro wrestling anymore, because the parasocial connections to all these wrestlers are so different now than they were in the early 2010s. So, I mean, give it a go. Sure. And he's got Evil on the last night. I imagine he's going to be the guy who needs to knock Evil out and, keep up the Hantai versus House of Torture feud. And, my bet is that sends Shota into the final 3. And then, maybe he'll do a Tiger Driver 91 and, borrow something else from Will Ospreay. I don't know. So that's kind of how I feel about Shota. That's kind of all I got.
All right, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, we're on the same wavelength. A lot of us here on this podcast right now, I think we all kind of share in those same sentiments. I do think it's interesting who Shota Umino has on the last 3 nights. That's Evil, Jake Lee, and Tetsuya Naito. Those are 3 of the bigger names in the block. So regardless of how we all feel about his showing in the tournament, they've clearly lined up, like, 3 of the biggest names for him, down the stretch. So to me, that's kind of an earmark telling me that he's very likely one of those guys that is going to get into the knockout rounds. And again, since he does have Evil on the last night, it just makes sense that he probably would beat Evil there. I would also probably anticipate him beating Naito. That also kind of makes logical booking sense to me as well. Regardless of whether he ends up winning the block or not, that's something that would definitely, potentially open up a title challenge in October or something like that for him if that were the case. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, largely uninspired by Shota Umino's run in the tournament. I feel like he showed so much more personality and fire in last year's G1 as opposed to this year, when it seems very apparent that they're giving him the push. But, everyone's wondering, like, who is Shota Umino? So, yeah, I don't know. And as far as, like, people being cosplayers and stealing other people's gimmicks, I mean, like, my podcast has experienced that for years, so I know exactly what that's like.
David, talk to us about Shota, please.
Oh, my. What has me most concerned is we have 3 matches. Evil, again, Jake Lee, Naito. I don't think any of us here would say, okay, I feel comfortable with any of those guys, minus maybe Naito on a good day, where we're going to see the best of Shota, right? He had matches with Shingo and Callum and Zach and Gabe, and we're talking about how mid this tournament has been with him. And it's and we just rattled off those names where you would think literally either of us, any of us, might have some of the best matches we possibly can. I'm worried. I am definitely worried about A, does he have it? And B, will he be able to show it? I don't think this is set up for him to look good in any way, shape, or form. Now, on paper, yes, absolutely having Evil last night, we can do some wonderful things. But to me, he has not proven anything to anyone. And I'm sure people are saying, well, why the fuck? He doesn't have to do it. Okay, great. But if you're telling me he hasn't had a great G1 and all those names that he's been in the ring with, how do you not? How have you not? I don't think, aside from maybe, again, 2000, 2019, 2018 Yoshihashi, I don't know of a guy who is more uncomfortable in his own skin going into a pro wrestling ring. Like, it's just, I don't know. I do not know. I feel like he would rather be anywhere else on earth. So, yeah, I mean, you got Jake Lee, who I think, everybody has their opinion, but I don't think a lot of them are that great. He's got Naito, who, again, given the tap on the shoulder, his mind wants to do a lot more than the body can, and hopefully he can make it happen. And Evil. I don't know. I don't like those percentages. I really don't. So I'm waiting. We're all waiting for the guy to come into his own. And if, as you say, Joel, there's a possibility of him maybe, using this match as some sort of springboard. I'll echo the thoughts earlier of how many chances is this fucking guy going to get? Like, how many opportunities is this guy going to get? How many pathways is this guy going to get? That, we can go down that roster and say, I don't know if that has been afforded to a lot of guys who, quite honestly, might be better. And again, that's pro wrestling. We've seen that throughout the history of this form of entertainment. But right now, as we sit here, I don't see this ending well for Shota.
Shingo Takagi also on 6 points, so he beat Zack Sabre Jr. and his final 3 matches are Sanada, then Evil, then Jake Lee. So sticking with you, Damon, what are your thoughts on Shingo?
He's a stud, and while he has plenty of miles on him, and he's certainly not a 20-year-old Shingo and running around in Dragon Gate anymore. I feel comfortable that he has 6 points, that he will be in the mix. and he has the potential to have great matches. And now, again, his lineup is not that great either. He's got Evil. He's got Jake Lee. And correct me if I'm wrong, he's got Sonata. So, we'll see. We'll see. If I trust anyone, let's put it this way, I trust him in that block to have great matches with any of those three. Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. But him at 6 points, I would think he would be somewhere in the mix, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets more wins than losses in those three matches.
Chris?
I still think Shingo's winning the G1.
The whole thing?
I think Shingo's winning the G1. That was a late pivot, I think, after I did any audio, as I was thinking through the G1, is that the best story to tell and the best drawing match for Wrestle Kingdom is Shingo Takagi versus Tetsuya Naito. And then once Shingo beat Naito in night one, that solidified my pick of Shingo Takagi to win the G1, because then Naito can go back through the rest of his defenses, which are plentiful now, throughout the fall, and Shingo still gets the Wrestle Kingdom match. So I still think that's the case. That's sort of a bold take based on the pick'ems and based on the conversations that I've seen. But I think that his last three, Sonata, Lee, and Evil, they could go either way. He could be totally knocked out and not even make it into the playoff. That also wouldn't really surprise me, but I still have my flag planted as the Shingo Takagi's winning the G1, and I don't know what that looks like from a story perspective. Is it a friendly at the Tokyo Dome, or does Shingo turn? Do we do the Shingo wins a tournament, turns on Naito thing? I mean, like, it's a storyline that has worked for many others, so possibly, right? But I would love to see it. I was stunned to find that Shingo Takagi is 16-2 in New Japan singles matches at Korakuen Hall, and he's won 9 in a row. And he's in the main event with Sonata, probably after most people listen to this, so everyone will know if that stat pans out. But he doesn't lose. He doesn't lose in Korakuen. The last time he lost in Korakuen was as close to an empty Korakuen as you can get without it being an empty Korakuen. He lost to Ishii in the 2020 G1. So. Yeah, so I think his trajectory is still good. And I think Shingo being on Evil's docket for the tail end of the tournament too kind of does continue to solidify that I think Evil's going to lose out. So I'm hopeful. And I think the Shingo Jake Lee match will be really important, on that last night of blocks.
Josh?
Yeah, so it's always been my opinion that whoever is going to challenge for the belt at the Tokyo Dome, just based on the names in the A block, I know it's not traditional to expect that winner to come out of the same block as the champion, but just going by the same logic that Chris kind of laid out, what's the best, what's going to be the biggest match that you can book for the Tokyo Dome? All those names are in the A block with the champion. That being said, I'm looking at the names there, and I think for sure there's no way that they're going to leave Naito out of the knockout round, and I'm pretty confident that they're putting Shota Umino through. So then at that point, for me personally, the only two names that really I guess there's three names that kind of make a lot of sense. I think you could do Sonata as a dark horse, maybe Zack Sabre Jr., but Shingo Takagi does make sense. At the same time, like Chris said, given the level of competitors that he has, and Damon also echoed this, like he could also not even make the knockout round. So it is very precarious for him at this point in time. I still think he's probably the standout performer in the A block just across the board, and I would love it if he were to get to that knockout round. I think it's kind of been a crying shame that he hasn't gotten his just due ever since the title run during the pandemic era. This company is desperately in need of restructuring when it comes to factions and alignments, and they need something to kind of shake things up. So maybe potentially him and Naito at the Dome could really make some sense. I don't know. For me, though, the way that I've always kind of seen it, I think that Naito's going to lose in the BC portion of the knockout to whoever is going to challenge him in October, and then whoever finishes 1 will beat that challenger and win the block and win the entire tournament. And I don't know if that kind of booking shakes out for Shingo if that were to be the case. I think that makes more sense if Zach were to get to that spot. So that's kind of where I'm sitting at with things. I do see Shingo losing some matches here, and I'm going to stick with Zach, Shota, and Naito being the guys that get through.
Moving on to Tetsuya Naito, who's on 6 points. He beat Gay Kid, and he has Shota Umino, Callum Newman, and Great O'Khan as his final 3 matches. So sticking with you, Josh, how do you see Naito playing out?
I mean, there's no way that Naito doesn't end up in the knockout round. If it is, I'll be, I don't know if I'd say pleasantly shocked. I think you still need to give some respect to the champion and his prestige in the tournament. Naito, everybody's kind of acknowledged the struggles that he's had during this tournament, in terms of his ability to go and perform certain maneuvers and that sort of thing. But, I don't see Newman or O'Khan as being viable guys to beat him at this stage of the game. So I think they really are telegraphing that Umino victory. And, at that point, kind of looking at who he has in the final night, Great O'Khan, that's a guy who's beaten him in the past, but I think he'll get past Great O'Khan. He'll wind up in the knockout stage. I don't see him finishing top of the block. I think, again, like I just said, whoever he faces in that first knockout stage, they beat him. They get the October title shot, and then that's it. I think he'll just have the one title defense, and then we won't see him defend that title again until January.
Damon?
I'm not 100% sold that he makes it to Wrestle Kingdom as champion. And I know that might be sacrilege, and I know that might be, but there are so many potential challengers at this point, and we're still not even done yet. With the assumption that he's not winning the tournament, because why would a champion do that? I'll go so far as to say that I'm not even 100% sold that the winner of this tournament is the guy who will be eventually challenging. I think there's so much flux and so much, I guess, willingness to try different things that I don't know if it's 100% carved in stone that it's a definite thing that will happen. That being said, I don't think it's any surprise that he'll be in the mix. I don't think it's any surprise that, quite honestly, he'll. I mean, like I said, we got O'Khan, who, again, I think everybody's kind of like, okay, is this his run? Is this where he kind of, makes his mark that we've all been waiting for to certain degrees? So he's got O'Khan and he's got Callum, and I don't think anyone is. I don't think anybody thinks Callum's taking that. So yeah, he'll be in the mix. He'll be, again, is he going to win it? I highly doubt it. Champions usually don't. And I'll go so far as to say I don't know if this G1 is a true indicator of how his autumn will be. And I don't think he makes it to Wrestle Kingdom holding the title. So I don't know what that main event might look like, to be honest with you. So don't put me on the spot there. But I just think with all the baggage that he has, all the potential matchups that are on the table, I would be surprised, actually, if he does make it to Wrestle Kingdom, even though, if you're looking for that traditional Japanese main event, that would be the probably the most logical thing to do and the easiest path. I don't know if necessarily he'll be the guy holding the title when it comes January 4th.
I know you said not to put you on the spot, but I have to wonder, what could they, let's just say, they do whatever they want to do, however they need to get there. What is that marquee match that they could do that deserves to run the Tokyo Dome that doesn't include Tetsuya Naito?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough call, right? They have plenty of young guys, but do you put the burden of a Tokyo Dome main event on a Yota Tsuji or Yuya or? I don't think anybody knows Takeshi's status. I mean, yes, a wet dream would be beautiful for him to be somewhere in the mix in the main event. I mean, yes, logically, it says Naito's got to be in that main event because who else would you trust in that spot? But again, in that same breath, I'm just like, my God, there's just so much ahead of him. And which would quite honestly make a great story if he were the guy that kind of overcome all of those obstacles to get to a Wrestle Kingdom main event. I don't know. I'm kind of looking at it from the other end of, my God, that's, how would that look? How would that be? And quite honestly, I don't know. I just think that they're in this era of flux, we'll call it, that I think if you really want to shake things up and try new things and establish stars, I don't know if Wrestle Kingdom's the place to do that in your main event, but eventually that day's going to have to happen. So maybe it comes from G1 and that person is elevated to the moon. It's probably Naito, let's be honest. but I see that. I just see this overarching thing of we have possibilities, and the possibilities are still on the table with that.
Chris, your thoughts on Naito?
Yeah, I don't think Naito is a champion that you need to keep strong. So I think the best story that they could tell with Naito is for him to not make it into the knockouts. And I think with Umino, Newman, and Great Khan ahead of him, I think that Umino is definitely someone that could beat Naito plausibly, right? I think Naito continues to beat Newman. They're building up some sort of long-term story there, but I don't think now's the time for Callum Newman to beat Naito. But I'm not ruling out Great Khan on a hot streak. Actually, winning over Naito on that last night and surpassing him into the knockouts. And I say that I think that that's the best story that they can tell with Naito, because then you've got some juice in some of these at least one fall defense, but probably multiple. And Naito has a story where he has to squeak out a couple of title defenses because so many people are coming after him, and he's got and he looks like a weak champion, but he wants to make it to the main event, right? Naito's always got to have a reason to want to be in the main event at the Tokyo Dome. It's his story every year. And this year, the story needs to be that he needs to earn it by beating the guys who beat him in G1. And I think that that's a really interesting story. Also, it does open things up for potentially something like what Damon's saying, where someone like Zack Sabre Jr. doesn't have to be the second foreign-based talent to win the G1 climax, but he could potentially win the title and go into the main event at the Tokyo Dome. I don't know who that would be against, right? My pick would be Shingo Takagi, but that's how you get to two A-block guys facing off in the G1 when neither of them started as a champion, right? I'm not ruling any of that out. I love the idea of Tetsuya Naito actually having a terrible G1, showing up, coming out at 10 points, the opposite of his 2013 booking, where he comes out at 10 points, maybe tied with a bunch of other guys, but he lost to all of them. So he's definitely not going through, and then he's basically got to defend his way to the Tokyo Dome. I think that's a really interesting story to tell. And again, I don't think Naito is a champion that you need to keep strong because people love him.
And Chris, I would say, I would just to add to that, not to cut you off, but he's always better chasing.
Totally.
You know what I mean? He's always better
so the
chasing.
thing he's chasing is making sure that he keeps his spot as champion headed into Wrestle Kingdom. And I think that's a great story, and it gives you a reason to do a bunch of defenses on whatever shows you want, right? I think there's 3 or 4 shows that can sometimes get a defense, but run them on all of them and just have Naito be the featured dude and really cram in some defenses. But all of them could see a title change. And I think that that's so interesting. And Naito, maybe he wins one with a roll up, and he's doing all this stuff without the Destino. And there's so many ways you could go that could be really fun and interesting because Naito is so strong, and you may as well use that to your advantage while you've got it. So I'm sort of hopeful that that's the direction. But we will see. The easy thing to do is have him win 2 of these matches, these last couple of matches, go into the knockouts, have one big match against someone, and he gets knocked out in the single elimination space. So, but I think they should do the hard thing.
I think the scenarios that both you guys have laid out are definitely more fun and interesting and exciting. I just don't see Naito's body being able to hold up for like 2 to 3 defenses before January.
I think it's everyone's concern, to be quite honest with you. I think it's everyone's concern.
But that's the story.
Yeah, it is.
But it's also real life.
Well,
right.
I don't concern myself with real life. I'm a pro wrestling fan.
Right. That's the attitude.
All right, let's move on then to Sanada, who's also on 6 points, who beat Shota Umino and will face Shingo, Great-O-Khan, and Zack. So staying with you, Chris.
I can't wait for this.
Through this one.
There's not much to say. There never is with Sanada. He is a wrestler in the grade 1 climax in the A block, and he has 6 points. I wish I had more to say about Sanada. He's wholly uninteresting. So that's what I got.
Brilliant. Josh?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Chris. I don't really want to see the Okan match. That just doesn't, tickle my fancy. I think that the Sabre and the Shingo match, those two guys are the standouts in the A block, so they're always going to be the best opponents for pretty much everybody in the block by and large. But again, keep your eyes on the Sabre Sonata match in the final night, because that one's, that's setting off my spidey sense.
And Damon?
Sonata, he's a dog.
Sleeping dog. But that's me watching his matches. No, I'm being mean to him. He's been all right. He's been fine this tournament, just wholly unremarkable. Let's move on to Callum Newman then, who's got 4 points. He lost to Jake Lee and will face Great-O-Khan, Naito, and Gabe Kidd. So, Damon, we'll stay with you. Callum,
first G1, young guy. I'm sure there were some butterflies when it first started, even though he's had plenty of matches. Not like this is his first time in the ring. But even that said, your first one, I think you're dealing with the summer heat. You're dealing with the grind of G1. And it is a little bit of a learning process. So I'm willing to mulligan any one of the issues, challenges, in-ring, comfortability, all of that. That being said, I don't think he's had a bad tournament at all. I think it's been solid. I don't think anyone expected him going in to be the guy to collect points. He was a guy that was young, again, didn't have a lot of miles on him. That could be a guy that can maybe do a little bit of the heavy lifting in a lot of these matches. And I think he's been fine. I think he's been very good. And once again, he's got Gabe Kidd, and that should be incredibly fun. I think those guys, they've never had a singles match, have they? I don't remember. Chris, I'm gonna turn to your encyclopedia of knowledge. Do you know of them ever having a singles match together?
Wait, who?
Callum and Gabe.
I'm going to cage match.
All right, let's go.
Oh, they have not. No, they have not.
Okay. So, again, there's a little bit of mystery, but I think that it could work. I like both guys. I think both styles. I think the styles would be good together. And I don't think they'll let it all hang out. And you might be right that this might just be, opening, they're going to give them 10 minutes and, we just got to get to the meat and the potatoes. But, again, I would give him a solid B+. No one expected him to collect points. And again, let's shine against Gabe. And given the limited amount of time that you have, I'm sure it'll be great. They'll squeeze 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag.
They have wrestled before.
They wrestled in the first round of the Japan Cup.
Chris
Jesus
Chris wanted to correct himself before I could get him.
I'm over here thinking about Great-O-Khan, okay?
Chris wanted to correct that so bad before I could gotcha him.
I was like, I said it, and I was like, I don't think that was right. And then I was like, shoot, it was like a featured match, first round New Japan Cup. So,
why don't I remember? I don't remember anything. Was it good? Was that good? That was good, right? It was good.
It was.
They've also wrestled in they wrestled in Rev Pro.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay, then this whole fucking thing goes right out the window. He's got 4 points. Fuck him. I don't care anymore.
All right, Chris, I think I pulled the plug on a conversation we were about to have in VOW Slack about Callum Newman, didn't I?
That's yeah. I was also trying to remember if this was that. Yeah. What was that conversation? It was just the discourse around Callum Newman, right? So what did I say? I'm pulling it up in the Slack actually. Yeah, this is great audio. Basically, a lot of people
It started off with me saying Callum Newman discourse is already making me want to blow my brains out.
Yes, that is where it started. And I think a lot of people jumped into that conversation. Very smart people jump into that conversation and say, well, he's 21 years old. Like, give him a break. Like, he's doing great. Blah, 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 blah. Right? Like, and, my take on that is that if I'm going to give someone who's 21 a pass, I have to give someone who's 48 a pass. Someone like Tanahashi in the last couple of years. And, that's the same approach to me, right? Like, to me, the grade one climax, G1 grade 1 climax is the best of the best, right? The best people that wrestle in or around Japan or in or around New Japan at this moment. So I think to give someone a pass for being 21 years old, while I think it's awesome, and I think Callum Newman belongs here and he's in the right spot. But to give the output a pass because he's young is the same to me as saying this is a developmental opportunity and we don't expect much of him. But this is the best of the best. That's someone else's slot that Callum Newman is in. And I don't think it's really fair to say, well, yeah, he's young. Because that's basically the same thing that, it's like when people say like, oh, this person should go do an excursion. This AEW wrestler should go do an excursion with New Japan. It's like that New Japan ain't your developmental. So, and while it's a little bit different because Callum Newman at least is a New Japan wrestler, I expect the G1 Climax to be the best wrestlers in the world. And I think we're a lot closer to that this year than we were the last two. But that still doesn't give Callum Newman an automatic pass on my book for the quality of the output. Now, what I will say though is I think the output's been fine. I don't think he has looked out of place in hardly any moments. I think he's had some clunky moments, but honestly, there's been clunky moments all over this tournament. So I don't necessarily think he's out of place, but I just don't give him the youth pass. So that's sort of my take on it, is that like I expect this tournament to be great wrestlers. And I think Callum Newman is on his way to being a great wrestler. He is clearly a high potential candidate to be a star in this industry. But that doesn't mean I'm going to grade him on a curve, if that makes sense.
And Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the discourse is that you guys are hearing. The only real discourse I ever hear is how, he needs to find his own identity and break away from the Will Ospreay mold. But as far as the output, I've thought that he's been fantastic. I mean, the main thing, obviously, they're keeping him in, lower level matches on the card, and his longest match was sub 13 minutes with Shingo. But everything's really falling more into that like 10 to 11 minute range. So clearly they're not allowing him to have full New Japan house style matches. And maybe that's because he's not ready for them. I'm not totally sure on that. But I'm impressed every time I see him. So that's just my view on it. As far as where he's going to wind up with things, he's got Naito. He's got... who else does he have? He's got Okan. I don't think the Naito match is winnable for him. The Okan match is, but on the final night he has Kidd. I feel pretty confident he's beating Gabe Kidd on the final night to establish himself as a potential strong champion challenger. And they've got that show in the UK, so that match makes a lot of sense on paper to kind of establish him as the challenger when they head back to Crystal Palace. They're going to probably.
Do they have a show in the UK?
It's not been announced. I'm just speculating. I thought if they do Copper Box again, surely.
I think Suede's performing that night too. If you catch my drift.
Yeah, I guess you guys were kind of the ones that broke that news, right?
We've broken so much news; it's hard to keep.
It's just we can't keep track. I mean, sorry.
Who's keeping count? Not me.
We stink.
Certainly not. I do not trade in clout, my friend.
Well, hypothetically, if they do a UK show that may or may not occur, then that match makes a lot of sense to me on paper.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Let's talk about Great Khan then, who's on 4 points. He beat Evil, and he will face Callum Newman, Sanada, and Tetsuya Naito. The people are saying it. Gokigawa, Great Khan is going on a run. Josh, is Great Khan going on a run?
I don't think so. I haven't really seen much to indicate to me that he will, and I don't really see the upside to him going on a run unless you want to have Naito trailing from behind and kind of come back at the last second, then maybe potentially, but I think Sanada probably needs a win to keep him strong going into that final match with the ZSJ. I think Naito needs a win. Newman's the only match that seems winnable here, and I haven't seen any kind of strong indication in the booking that they plan to turn him around. I don't see him being a block finalist, so I don't see what the point would be to have him go on a run.
All right, Damon?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everybody knows I'm a Great Okan bitch, and I fall for it every fucking time. and I tried. I'm in the face paint right now. It's the same old, right? Where I get excited over the possibility of this guy being somebody, and then
he beat Evil. Evil was 5-0. He was the first person to defeat him.
Okay, all right. I want to be there. Trust me, I do. I just don't want to fucking eat the turd again, if you know what I'm saying. It does feel like of any guy on this roster that there are people that influence booking decisions that like him, and there are people that influence booking decisions that do not. And it really depends on which way the fucking wind blows. I can't, and I agree. There's people that need wins more than Great Khan. I mean, that's really the bottom line. And exactly like what is the potential upside of having him sweep the table? Again, I would love it. I just don't want to fall for it. And I mean, I think he loses probably more than he wins with these last three. Let's put it that way.
And Chris, are you going to be eating the turd sandwich or whatever metaphor Damon used there?
I don't have to own it. That I don't have to come back here and talk about how wrong I was. So I'm going to say I think Great Khan could lose out the rest of his tournament, and that
God damn it
really wouldn't surprise me. But I think what's happening. I think Great Khan, if he's ever going to go on a run, it's now.
Let's go.
So I think he might actually just win out, and that
Very
makes him a
wise.
threat at the end of the tournament against Naito. He gets a big match against Naito. They've had some interactions in the past. There's some story
Let's go.
there. I think there's an absolute possibility that it's happening, but also if it doesn't, I will shrug and move on. Like,
No, you're eating the sandwich with me.
Listen,
Ride or die.
If you and I want, Damon, we can just get some sandwiches. We don't, and they can have shit in them. I don't care. Like it doesn't matter to me. But like, I think if he's ever going to go on a run, there's something there in this tournament where the matches are a little bit different. They feel a little elevated. He feels locked in. He's got the look. He's kind of figured out a lot of stuff. And honestly, like United Empire just needs someone else who could like participate in some of the title match stuff. So I don't know if he's ever going to go on a run. It's now. If he doesn't do it this year, I will never believe it's going to happen. And I think there's something there. There's something in the backstage promos. There's something in his aura. There's something in the conversations. There's something in the fact that he's got Newman next to set him up with probably another win and some kind of United Empire hierarchy there. And I do think that last night against Naito's got to be important. And maybe he loses that, and Naito, that starts Naito's path to glory or whatever. But I think that there's also the chance that he wins that, and then Naito just gets a nice little break, which people keep saying his body's broken. So why would he wrestle another match? So I don't know. There's something there. My spidey sense is tingling. Let's do it. Let's go.
Let's fucking go.
He's a title holder.
Let's fucking go. You know he is.
GW title for once.
Chris won the G1 Pick'em one year, so you never know.
Have you got that data to hand? Has anyone picked Great O'Khan to win the Grade 1 climax?
Let's. I do have that. Let's.
I want them publicly. I want them outed. I want the name of the person or people.
Let's see. Great O'Khan was selected to win one bracket. I'm pretty sure I know who that is.
Kevin Kelly.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Gideon.
Gideon Gray. Gideon Gray. Yes.
Gideon Gray?
I'm pretty sure that's his bracket. I can verify that here if y'all want to keep talking. But one person picked Great O'Khan to win, but 3 people picked Great O'Khan to win the block. So
wow.
I don't know what that says, but yeah,
Great O'Khan's mother.
The net was wide of the people that entered this pool. So,
right.
All right. Well, let's move on then from Great O'Khan and talk about the smart bastard Jake Lee, who's on 4 points. He beat Callum Newman and will face Gabe Kidd, Shota Umino, and Shingo Takagi. So,
hang on, real quick. I did verify it was Gideon Gray who selected Great O'Khan. Gideon Gray is currently in last place on the leaderboard here on the Climax Pick'em Pool in 733rd.
That is great.
As it stands, does that mean he's going to be on the Super J Cast?
He may be on the Super J Cast. We'll have to offer it to him.
Oh, my life is complete. Yeah.
All right, Chris, talk to me about Jake Lee, please. That's fine as well.
I kind of feel the same way about Jake Lee as I do about Sonata. I'm a little more interested in what Jake Lee is up to because he is clearly fresher. I was shocked to see Jake Lee go on a losing streak. I mean, he went on the longest losing streak of his career in his first G1. I mean, like to me, that's someone saying, hey, man, you're in the big leagues now, I guess. I don't know. Is that a thing that they do over there? But I do think he's obviously going to turn it around. He's going to be important in something going forward. I just don't know if he's going to stick with the War Dogs. I don't know that that's the right fit. So we'll see. And again, we'll also see if he's around. He lobbied and politicked and tried to get into the G1 since he's got in 2020, sort of open up. And he's here now. And he's been Jake Lee. He hasn't really been anything different, but I've said it from day one. I think we were getting the reverse Kenta, and Jake Lee's going to come in and join the Bullet Club, and then at the end of the tournament, he's going to get ousted from the Bullet Club, or he's going to turn on them. And I still think that's at play. So I'm looking at whatever Jake Lee does on the G1 final card. So I would not be surprised if Jake Lee, kind of has a middling last couple of matches and doesn't make it into the playoffs, because I think his moment will come on that card, which will set up what he's doing going forward.
Josh.
Yeah. I think Jake Lee versus Gabe Kidd is very, very interesting just from the, potential inner turmoil with the War Dogs and how that all plays out. Of course it could just be a nothing burger and those two guys, have issue for that one match and it doesn't go beyond that. But it feels like with his, just getting kind of shoehorned into War Dogs just prior to the G1, that very much felt like sort of a forced thing, kind of out of nowhere. Those two guys have, apparently I haven't watched any of the undercards, but from what I understand, they've been gelling quite a bit as a tag team on the undercard. So it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. And then he does have Shingo on the final night. I don't have a lot to say about Jake Lee. I think he's been immensely disappointing in the tournament. I could pretty much just see him as playing spoiler on the final night with Shingo. And then I do think it's going to be interesting to see what happens during the actual G1 finals, and what is the future status of War Dogs, because there seems to be a lot kind of going on there with him and then Gabe and then obviously Finley and that sort of thing.
And Damon.
Yeah, I think I think it was Chris had said, he's the freshest face of boring. He's the new poster child for middle of the show, kind of giving you that gentleman's three. I don't think anything has stood out particularly. I think everyone sort of expects him to find his way back to Noah. And I don't think anyone would have a problem with that. It did seem forced for him to be shoehorned in. It does feel, again, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong. Like, you're getting Jake Lee. And unfortunately, there are a ton of people that understand what that means through following him through his various stops, All Japan included. And there are people that this is their first time getting a glimpse, and I don't think anyone is like, yep, this is a guy that we can put the rocket ship to, nor, would it be the smartest thing for New Japan to do. He's a placeholder in G1, and he's done that job admirably. But look, I don't think anybody's sitting here, with their pants down over anything Jake Lee does. He's there, and we'll see. Like he's in the role of fucking up someone's tournament, but aside from that, I don't think that there's anything that we'll write home about over Jake Lee.
Let's move on to B block then. Top of the list we have David Finlay, who's on 8 points. He beat Takeshita and Oleg Boltin, and his final 3 matches are Hiroki Goto, Jeff Cobb, and El Phantasmo. So sticking with you, Damon, thoughts on David Finlay and how the rest of his tournament plays out?
I think he's had a really solid G1. I don't know if I would go spectacular. I don't know if I would go great. I don't think it's going to go down as one of the greater runs in G1. But he is set up with those 3 matches to really fucking shine, and play into that, dare I say, tough guy bully. Just doesn't, just is going to steamroll you, and I like that about the David Finlay. This could be these 3 matches could play a very vital role in people's perception of him moving forward with Bullet Club. So I think there's a lot on the table, so I'm excited for him. I want it to succeed. Here's the opportunity. This is the moment where everyone prior to this, and even this year, let's be honest, because I think he's had a very solid year, but people who are not on that bandwagon and never really thought he was a good fit as being a leader of a faction, let alone a high profile one as this. Like, this is the time for them to kind of eat a little crow. And if I'm a betting man, I'm putting my money on David Finlay.
And Chris.
Yeah, I think he's had a good tournament. I think that last match against El Phantasmo has my spidey sense tingling. Yeah, right. Like, I just feel like that's a real good opportunity for El Phantasmo to, everyone gets a thing, right? And we all know this. Like, those of us who have been around the G1 for a while now, like, everyone gets a moment in the G1 if you're in it. Sometimes that's on the first night, and you get your first big win, Callum Newman and Oleg, right? Like, sometimes it's on the last night, and you do kind of a bunch of nothing, a bunch of points balancing for the first 8 matches, and then maybe you get a win over, a white belt champion and get yourself back on track. So there's something to keep your eyes on there. A lot of people think Finlay is moving and going deep into this tournament. A lot of people had Finlay going all the way to the finals. And I think that that's still in play, right? I think something has to establish this man as being a real threat. And the G1's a great time to do that. So, 200 people put him through as the block winner in the B block. So, and that's a little less than a third of the entries. So, I think that's still in play. I think that's still actually probably pretty likely, especially now that we've seen Takeshita take 3 losses. I think there's a chance Finlay is the block winner and gets that bye, and and is a threat to make it to that final. I think Finlay would be a great finalist against any number of guys from the A block, but probably a Japanese wrestler. So I think in my mind it's the final might be like Finlay Shingo, maybe Finlay Umino if that's the direction we're going. If we're really going with the youth, maybe that's something. But I would not be stunned to see Finlay make it to the final.
Yeah, he's a good foil, isn't he? He was a good foil to Sanada in last year's New Japan Cup final. Maybe could fill that sort of Jay White role of being the guy who can be in those big main events and tournament finals without actually winning them, and is just there to make the domestic hero look good. But yeah, Josh, what are your thoughts on Finlay?
Yeah, so I'm always back and forth on Finlay because sometimes there've been a couple G1s in the past where he's really stood out and started to kind of carve a niche for himself, and then other times where I feel like he's regressed in terms of character work and his portrayal. And throughout this tournament, I've kind of felt somewhat apathetic about him, but I also find myself doing a damn, that was fucking cool. Like, there's a couple moments in each match where he's brutalizing people and it's kind of cool, but I'm still disconnected from the character and I don't fully buy into him as the leader of Bullet Club, even still to this day. That being said, I could totally see them pushing him. I could see him being one of the guys as a block finalist. I do think that the ELP match on the final night is not a red herring. I think that's very much going to be him getting knocked out of qualifying for the blocks and sort of set up a title match between those two guys, especially considering the history that they have with one another. So yeah, I think Finlay's going to basically not make it into the knockout round. That's sort of my hot take there. And I think that ELP is going to replace him in that respect.
All right, Jeff Cobb is also on 8 points. He beat ELP and Henare, and his final 3 matches are Oleg Boltin, Finlay, and Yota Tsuji. So sticking with you, Josh, talk to us about Jeff Cobb, please.
Cobb's had a phenomenal tournament. I think the work rate in the B block has been a tad bit higher just across the board. But some of these guys, I definitely have Tsuji being one of those block finalists. I think Tsuji kind of needs that win there. I can't say for sure that Oleg Boltin will beat him, but I wouldn't be too surprised if that were to also happen. That'd be like one of his big, statement wins of the tournament. And, again, Finlay, another guy. I'm not saying he's going to lose all 3 of these matches, but I think all 3 of them are on the table. I don't think Cobb's going to be a block finalist, so I anticipate him. I anticipate that he's going to lose at least 2 of these matches, personally.
Okay, then I'll have Damon next, please. Talk to me about Jeff Cobb.
I think he's a stud. I really do. And I think he's undervalued in a lot of ways. Trust me, I have circled Oleg and Cobb. I think that match is going to fucking be great. And it has the potential of being one of those just crazy... I'm not going to sit here and say best match of the tournament, but I really feel like that's something I want to say. And even with Yoda, I think that has the potential to be really fucking great. I think he's had an underappreciated tournament. I think he's a stud, and I think he's a rock in B block. 8 points. I would expect... we need to shave some points off, so I don't see him in the finals, be honest with you. And I don't think that's due to him or anything other than it's just the way it's going to lay out. But, to me, having him in G1 obviously is such a positive. And B, he's probably deserving of more. And I hate saying deserving because nobody deserves shit. But... yeah, I mean, I don't want to sit here and just fucking goo all over Jeff Cobb. That doesn't sound good. We can edit that out. Damn. Edit out goo all over Jeff Cobb. See, this is where we steal all your listeners. The goo on Jeff Cobb is really the chef's kiss of the Super J Cast. he's, it's a shame that he is so good and he is such a talent and he is an absolute stud and rock in B block that he'll never win it. And hopefully I'm eating crow, but I just don't see him making it past into finals or even semifinals.
I feel if we were sort of running with this idea that the ELP Finley match has got a good chance of ELP knocking out Finley, then the winner of the Finley Cobb match has probably got to go through. I mean, that's got to be a huge match. So maybe this is the year that they finally pull the trigger on Jeff Cobb, going deep into these tournaments and making it out of the blocks. Chris, what say you to Jeff Cobb?
I mean, what I love about Cobb is the same thing I love about Goto, is that he can plausibly win or lose any match he's in. So, with that said, it's really hard to predict the remainder of Jeff Cobb's tournament as well, especially given who he's got ahead of him, with especially Finley and Tsuji, right? But I'm looking forward to all three of those matches. But Cobb's a guy who could lose 2 out of 3, win 2 out of 3, win all 3. He's a spoiler kind of guy, and I think that's the perfect booking for him in the G1. Now, I don't doubt that maybe he loses the tiebreaker to Takeshita or something, which pushes Takeshita through and pulls Cobb back. But I think he's had a wonderful tournament. I think he was, a great addition to the commentary rotating seats. I think he does a nice job in that role. And I'm looking forward to really, truly all 3 of his last 3 matches here, especially because the outcome is so kind of up in the air. But he's a guy that wouldn't shock me to kind of squeak through. He's got the points now. And I think you're right. You got to shave some points off, but, he's in the mix, and he's always that guy that's in the mix. And I would love to see them give him a go with one of the single elimination matches at least.
Henare has 6 points. He beat Yuya Uemura and lost to Jeff Cobb. I do just want to point out one thing here. There was a lot of talk about the finish to the Henare versus Jeff Cobb match, which obviously was an intra-faction United Empire match. And yeah, a lot of people were talking about the end to that, where Jeff Cobb threw up the United Empire symbol, and then Henare threw up a different hand gesture, which apparently is like a Bushido thing for those of you who are into that sort of stuff. I watched the full series of Shogun, so I know this stuff. Where during when someone is committing seppuku, then you have one of your own guys, who's called the Kaishakunin, who is there to finish the job and chop your head off as you're committing seppuku. So I think that's what Henare was going for, where he's basically just expresses to Jeff Cobb, look, I'm done, you've beaten me, now finish me off like a warrior. So I think that's what they were going for there. And I know it didn't land with everyone, but that was my interpretation of it at least. But Henare's final 3 matches will be Yotsuji, Ren Narita, and Hiroki Goto. So Chris, talk to me about Henare, please.
I think he's had a nice tournament so far. I think I'm really looking forward to the Goto match. And I think, he's a never champ, right? So that's not necessarily a protected championship that you have to kind of be careful with by any means. But I do think typically towards the tail end of the tournament, you start to see never titles or, secondary title stuff set up. So I'm looking at Tsuji and I'm looking at Goto sort of unfortunately, I'm looking at Narita as guys that if they beat Henare, they're going to point at that title and they're going to say, I want my shot, blah, 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 right? They're going to make it really clear what's happening. So, I would sort of love for that to be Goto and they can do this sort of generational thing. But yeah, I mean, ultimately he's had great output and I think he's set up to have a nice back third here.
Josh, how are you feeling about Henare?
Yeah, I agree. I think Henare, sitting at 6 points, just one win away from the block leaders at this point in time, Finley and Cobb. He's had a strong tournament. And again, the never title isn't one, that champion isn't necessarily super protected in this tournament. So with 3 more matches, you do anticipate if he's not making it into the block finals, he's probably going to have a few defeats. The Tsuji match, big fan of Tsuji. I think that one's really going to stand out. But like Chris said, the Goto match, just considering both of those two guys' style, there have been quite a few matches that were really good and hard hitting, but maybe not always up to what people were hoping to get when it comes to that Never style in this block. But that one's almost guaranteed to deliver on that level. So that one's going to, really, really be awesome. And then, I guess we'll get to Narita in a bit, but I don't have a lot to say about Narita, so I'm not really looking too forward to that match. But I definitely think Hinari is going to take a few losses here. I was hoping that his stock would rise a bit more in this tournament than it has, but he still had a strong tournament nonetheless.
Damon.
Yep, 3 points on Hinari that I actually have written down. One, I feel like his involvement in G1 is, in a lot of ways, what and echoing what Josh and Chris has said is, these are never defenses that are being set up. I love how people are now circling Hiroki Goto matches. Like they're looking forward to the possibilities with matches with him. And I think, he would be silly not to at this point. I think that match is going to fucking rock. I think the idea with Yota is fantastic. Like, that on paper is something I'm super excited for. I don't know if I'm necessarily incredibly excited about Red Narita match, but the one thing about Hinari is that no one will sit here and be like, well, he certainly didn't he phoned it in this one. He didn't put in any effort. Like, the guy gives you everything he has, it feels like, every single time he steps through the ring. Does it all land? No. Does it all work? No. But he fucking goes as hard as he can for, as long as he's been, the time's been allotted. So I'm never going to not be a fan of Hinari just for that reason alone. And when it works, I mean, we've seen in this year, like, if you give the guy the opportunity, to me anyway, it lands more than it doesn't. So, yep, he's there for Never title. Yep, he's there to establish his autumn runs and defenses, but also there to be that G1, big beefy guys hitting each other as hard as they fucking can, giving it all they got. And I think when you look at both A and B, like, those are things that people hook onto, and those are things that people latch onto. People still talk about that cage match. And again, your opinions may vary of, is that fucking worth it? He did it, and he's wired that way, and he ain't going to stop doing shit like that. He's just not. He's just not wired that way. And for that, I can't throw enough flowers his way.
And then we have Ren Narita, who's also got 6 points, who beat Goto, lost to Tsuji, and will face Yuya, Henare, and Takeshita on the final night. I'm looking at that Takeshita one, wondering
Me too.
if you can spoiler there. Damon, talk to us about Ren.
I mean, you read my mind. I mean, that's the one thing that sticks out like a sore thumb to me, is that match. And yeah, he's the perfect guy to be the spoiler. He's there. Again, I've said it 1,000 times that I'm not the biggest fan of him in this faction. I don't think it adds anything to him learning as a pro wrestler, let alone advancing or anything like that. It's heel work. It's great, but I feel like it has a limited shelf life. I really do. I don't see him doing this in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Why would he? I mean, but that being said, I think he's, what he's being asked to do, I think he does pretty well. But yeah, I see him playing a spoiler role in the 14th, definitely.
Chris?
I think I agree, but I don't want to.
Come on.
But yeah, I mean, the writing's on the wall, right? I mean, there's nothing that says that that's not what's happening. Like, they gotta give these guys, everyone gets a thing, right? Maybe, and that's just their thing. And I don't know where that takes us, especially with the wrestler like Takeshita and a wrestler like Narita. Like, I don't know that that's a worthwhile thing. But yeah, that's what I've got circled. Everything else, I think, the Yuya match will be interesting. just does Yuya finally get a win over Narita? He's never beaten him. And they kind of came up together. So that's kind of the one that I've got circled. But for the long game and the going forward game, I'm not really sure. I don't know. And ultimately, you're going to feel how you feel about his matches. So with the House of Torture stuff, I've said my piece in various places about House of Torture. I think it's been fine. And I think that they have a place. But so I don't want to harp too much on that, especially a couple hours in here.
I hope he doesn't get that win. I like when they stretch out those streaks as long as possible. The most disappointing thing for me was when they randomly ended the Kanemaru winning streak over Ishimori in the pandemic for no fucking reason. I'm still annoyed about that. But Josh, talk to us about Ren.
Yeah, I don't have a lot more to say that these guys haven't already laid out. I'm not buying into the idea that he upsets Takeshita, even though optically it does look like that's on the table. I just feel like Takeshita already took a House of Torture loss to Finlay, so I feel like that's a bit of a red herring there. And the rest of the matches, they'll fall how they may. I was hoping to see at least one standout performance from Narita, a throwback to what we know he's capable of, even if it's still mixed in with the bullshit, but that just really hasn't come to bear. Maybe with Uemura it will, remains to be seen.
And let's then talk about Konosuke Takeshita, who is on 6 points. He lost to Finlay and Goto and will face El Phantasmo, Oleg Boltin, and Ren Narita. So, Josh, what are your thoughts on Takeshita?
Well, like I just said, I don't think that Narita is beating him on the final night. I do have him slotted to be one of those finalist guys. It would seem really strange for the way he's been booked in AEW and the fact that he is a Tony Khan guy and just his overall general performance for him to not be included in the knockout rounds. That would seem strange to me. But he does have some big matches coming up here. Oleg Boltin, that seems like a gimme match. I don't see, a guy that just graduated beating him. The Narita match, that's one you really have to worry about, like you guys mentioned. And the Phantasmo match, it kind of depends on what your opinion is of Phantasmo, because he's sitting at 4 points. If he wants to get in contention, he's going to need all three of those matches, and that's a big one for him. So, it really depends on where you're at. If you think he's Takeshita's a guy that's going through, then, he's probably going to dash the hopes of an ELP comeback. But if some people believe that ELP is going to rally back and, find his way into the block, then not so much so. The only other thing I will throw out there, Takeshita, in my opinion, performer of the tournament, performer of the block. Just by and large, he's had so many of the best matches of the tournament. It's hard to deny that, at this current time, he's the best performer in the G1.
Damon, do you agree he's an MVP, and do you see him making the playoffs at the end?
I absolutely do think he's an MVP of this G1. And look, I know it's a pipe dream. I know it's me sitting on top of a mountain screaming as loud as I can for them to pull up the truck full of bags full of money and saying, what can we do to keep you here? Please, thank you very much. I think the idea of him being a focal point, if not this year and years to go, would be such a positive for this promotion and fans alike. You have a blue chipper. You have a blue chipper right in front of you. And I don't know if it would take all that much convincing for that to occur, money aside, right? Yeah, he's an MVP. Yes, he has arguably the best run of anyone in G1. And he's got some talented guys in the ring to finish up the tournament. I would love to see him stick around for a long, long time and be a focal point of this promotion. I don't know what it will take. I don't know what it will do. I don't know if the conversations have occurred. I would hope that they have. Make it happen. A talent like this doesn't fall in your lap very often. And to be able to say, okay, he's going to be a part of this family for a while is, I think, I wouldn't say vital, but you have your future with all of your young studs and him. And I think it could be magical for years to come.
Chris?
I would be stunned if he's not at least in the knockout round. And I've said since the beginning of this G1 that I think that there's a chance that Takeshita, and he's not really playing up like a heel persona or an outsider persona, so I'm kind of softened on this, but I said that there's a chance that he goes into the final as kind of the outsider, right? And whoever goes into the final on the other side is there to defend New Japan from the outside. And I don't really see that as this tournament has gone along, but I have been surprised by his booking a little bit, that he's been he's given some losses, which I actually think is a really positive thing to see, in the sense of partnerships, in the sense of bringing guys in. So the tail end of his tournament, it's not Murderer's Row here, so he might roll up with 12 and be the guy who wins the block, for that matter. So, because again, if he's got the tiebreaker over Jeff Cobb, and maybe that's just for the block victory and they're both going through. But again, great tournament, tremendous wrestler. I said it somewhere else, and I can't remember exactly where I said it, but like the coolest thing about Takeshita is like all those moves that you see guys tease, and you're like, they're not going to do that. He's going to wiggle his legs and get out of it. Like, he takes the move. Like, he takes all those moves. Like, Goto hit what was that? Like a code red off the middle rope. Like, I was like, that's not going to be a thing that they do. And he just like took the move. Like, Takeshita's a giving wrestler. And I think that that's a really neat thing to see, because I think it could set an example for some of these guys in New Japan that maybe aren't so apt to do such things. So especially some of the younger guys like that generation. So I've greatly enjoyed having him around New Japan. I hope that I like everyone else, I hope he's around for a long time to come, even if it's a sharing situation with DDT and AEW. I just hope that this opens the door for him to just pop up occasionally for cool stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely raised the bar, and I know that there are some wrestlers in his block who are like nervous about wrestling him, about what, anxious about whether or not they can keep up with him physically. So I think that's definitely a good thing to have around New Japan. Let's move on to Yuya Uemura, who has 6 points, and the latest episode of the New Hero series from the New Japan YouTube has just dropped the episode with Yuya doing some promotional work around Fukuoka, and those are great watches for me. Those are must-sees if you've not check them out already. They had an episode for Tsuji, so there's a Yuya episode out, which is really good. And he lost to Hanare and ELP, and his final 3 matches are Ren Narita, Yota Tsuji, and Oleg Boltin. Staying with you, Chris, what do you think about Yuya?
Sorry, got lost. I'm disappointed that to me, it's pretty clear what happened with Yuya is he was that rising star at the beginning of the tournament, and now he's going to taper off and kind of settle in. So I'm disappointed that he didn't get the rocket. I've been waiting for the Yuya rocket for a long time, but what I do think happened is that those first couple of matches and those big wins did set him up to be kind of a player again. I think people had forgotten how great he is and how high his ceiling could be, especially because he wasn't in last year's G1 and he hasn't done a ton meaningful since he's been back. So I'm hopeful for the match against Tsuji to be a banger. I'm hopeful for him to, as a fan, I'm really hopeful that he gets that win over Ren Narita, though I wouldn't rule it out not happening, especially given the kind of the losing streak story that's happening right now. So, curious what Uemura is doing as we go forward here. That's kind of what's on my mind. I know he's got the win. He's got a couple of key wins that you could leverage into being the next storyline. So I anticipate that thing has already happened for him, though. I don't think going forward he's going to be a primary character in the remainder of the G1.
Josh?
Yeah, like Chris said, he was given the big push, some of those big wins early on. It does seem like he's going to taper off kind of down the stretch here. I think the Tsuji match is really, really interesting, just given the history between those two guys, and that's going to be a pretty dramatic match and pretty telling about where we're going between these two guys. But with Oleg Boltin, that's who he's facing on the final night, and it seems to me if he's suffering a loss or two, that's going to be his kind of return to form and get him, a little bit stronger up the block. But he's got 3 young guys on the tail end of the tournament here, so
Bingo.
They're not they're not setting him up for any sort of like big title match post G1. I mean, I guess you could hypothetically say maybe he already beat Finley and maybe that's leading to something, but because it happened so early in the tournament, I don't think they're going to get back to that. So like Chris mentioned, I'm very interested about where we're going with Uemura post G1 because they're tapering him off down the stretch.
Damon?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it, but again, you pointed out something that I had circled as well, is that those last 3 matches are against guys that are in his, we'll call it class, right? All guys that, are people that you would think if there is a rocket to be strapped, he would get wins over, right? So that to me is somewhat exciting. I think you can go either way, and I think once again we're set up with Yoda and Yuya to kind of continue on in their who's the better of this class. So I like that as well. He's still in the mix. I think he's going to pick up more wins than he does losses. I do. To me, he's a guy that if I'm going to circle any one of the young guys, it's going to be him. So why not give him more wins than losses? Especially when these last 3 matches, and which on paper, technically, I think Yoda is probably the biggest question mark. That could go either way. But I would think that he goes 2-1 at least to close out G1. I think his G1's been solid, absolutely. And to me, like if I'm circling anybody, he's my guy moving forward in this company.
Next, we've got Hiroki Goto, who has 6 points. He lost to Ren and then beat Takeshita and will face Finley, ELP, and Henare in his final 3 matches. And is making a run at, I think he may already have the Super J-Cast Unsung Award wrapped up for this year. So much so that I'm now thinking they should just put him in the final.
Whoa!
Just do it. Let's have him as a double finalist this year, because I'm that enamoured with Hiroki Goto this year. A guy who I thought, when he was announced for the tournament, I was thinking, should he really be there? And I'm seeing the guys who are in the qualifying tournament and didn't make it. Yoshihashi's not there, Taichi's not here. And I'm thinking, why has Goto managed to get his way in the tournament? But he has shut my mouth. I was completely wrong about that. He's still got it. Damon, do you agree?
1,000% that he still got it. I don't know if I'm pushing him through to the finals, but I was giggling at the performance that he had, and the fact that he's still a guy that if you tap on the shoulder, we say it all the time, he can fucking go. It's almost
bastion of chaos.
What's that?
He's the last bastion of chaos.
He really is. Yes. Yeah. I mean, again, do I see him going to the finals? I do not. Nor do I think it would be the right thing to do. That being said, would anybody really complain if he was? Because guess what? If he can perform at that level, and I don't know if he can. Maybe this is just a one-off thing. Maybe, but God damn it, if you're gonna end it with that type of performance from him, then God bless the dude. God bless. What's he got? He's got Finley and he's got Henare, which I think would be. I think both could be. I think Henare. I think on paper everyone has circled as the beefy guys beating the shit out of each other, and I think Chris, you said that's a perfect never scenario. So yeah, I think might be the future for him. But he should be fucking proud of this G1 because he's the guy that I mean, it takes 2 to dance, mind you, but I think it's pretty wild that here in 2024, everyone is saying, hey, you know what? This is something you need to go out of your way to watch. And Hiroki Goto was involved in it.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, he's been perfect in this tournament, right? I mean, he's one of those guys that can lose to anyone or beat anyone on any night, in any building, in any place. And on my end, he makes my little role with New Japan so much easier because like there's actual history to like dig into because we got rid of all the history this year. So he's given me a lot of little bullet points to share with the community. So I love that. But I see that last match with Hanare on that last, and let's just keep going with like vintage Goto defending his own honor, right? If he beats Hanare, he sets up a never title. That was a great situation. I can only imagine that could end up being a great program between those two. So I don't see him necessarily being a factor, but he's going to be a factor in how the results shake out, especially with the win over Takeshita. I just really think that, and honestly, and the win over Tsuji. I mean, like those are big dogs that people thought were going through, and Goto's kind of playing spoiler. If Goto was on the other side of someone like Takeshita, I could see Goto being that dude that's like defending the honor of New Japan, but they're both in the B block. But again, you can do anything you like with him, and he's clearly motivated to kind of keep his spot. So I'm down with however far you want to push Hiroki Goto. I don't think he's the G1 winner, but I think he should be a factor as we go forward. He's earned that, and I don't know that they've ever like pivoted booking based on that, but if they were ever going to, I think that this would be the moment.
And Josh.
Yeah, earlier at one point Damon was talking about Hiroki Goto, and he's like, he's done everything in the business, and I was going to chip in and be like, you never won the title.
That's true. He's had many opportunities.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, what more can you say about the performance that he's been, putting into this tournament? And I mean, I think one of the differences is in the past, he's always kind of performed at this level, but he was surrounded by a host of players that were all at the same level, or maybe even getting the opportunity to do a bit more with longer matches and more main event spots.
Great point.
And as those guys have kind of, disappeared from the company, he's still doing it. And it's becoming more apparent, like there's more shine on him, because when he was doing it in 2018 or 2020, it was more commonplace. But now that he's like the lone guy in this tournament from that generation that's still doing it, it's like, fuck, like Goto can really, really go. I don't have much more to say than that. I don't see him being a guy that's going to finish in the block finals, but I do feel like management or the booking committee or the IWGB committee, whoever it may be, the powers that be, they need to take note of what's in front of them. And, I think some sort of title run would be probably a good idea. I think there's money to be made with Goto still at this point in time beyond just, and don't get me wrong. I do really enjoy his tag team with, I like Bishamon a lot, but I think that there's more juice to be squeezed.
What a great point about all the talent that was on that roster and him being as good as he is, and just maybe he did get overlooked. And there's a lot of people that, on top of the mountain screaming Hiroki Goto for years. And I hear you, but yeah, that is a great point that he is one of the last remaining people from even an era previous. And the fact that he's still going and doing and able to kind of pull those emotions out of New Japan Pro Wrestling fans that kind of love that style. Yeah, it's a solid point.
Our friend Garrett Kidney said, and I hope he's okay with me sharing this. He said it in the Vow Slack. He said Hiroki Goto is I'm paraphrasing, but he said Hiroki Goto is a guy that still understands what that like peak G1 match feels like, and he's showing that in this year's tournament. And I think that's a really valuable guy to have around. He's a New Japan lifer, and he's a dude that just like gets what it's all about from that peak time. And I think to keep tapping into that would be a positive.
And I think he's been struggling with injuries the past few G1s he's been in, so maybe we've forgotten just how good he can really be. So maybe he's had a little rest, he's fit, he's healthy, raring to go, understands his value, being a foil to this young generation. And yeah, fully fit Hiroki Goto is just definitely doing it for a lot of New Japan fans. Let's move to Yota Tsuji, who's got 6 points. He beat Oleg Boltin and Ren Narita, and he will face Henare, Yu Uemura, and Jeff Cobb in his final 3 matches. So, Josh, what are your thoughts on Yota Tsuji?
I think Tsuji is going to win the next 3 matches and solidify himself as one of the block finalists. I think those are really big matches that he needs to win to kind of... I know a lot of other people are looking at Uemura and Umino and different people to strap the rocket to, but to me, it just seems like Tsuji's that guy. The guys that are in front of him, those are big, meaningful wins. He's already eaten quite a few losses. He's at 6 points. I think the Uemura match, because of how interconnected those two guys are, that's definitely one where my eyebrows are raising, and we've seen both of those guys get meaningful wins over one another. So that's going to kind of dictate the path for either one of them. But in my opinion, I think he's going to do either 2 or 3 wins in the next few nights and get into that block playoff.
Damon?
This is rocket ship territory for him. I mean, these last 3 matches, he potentially, the dance partners that he has, he can really stand out. And again, everybody wants it for him. Everybody's looking forward to it happening. Everyone, has him being one of the guys carrying the flag into the not even distant future, very near future. 3 matches in August. These are sexy fucking matches. And again, have the potential of making him even closer to that being a reality. 6 points, obviously he's in the mix. And yeah, I think he's making it to... He's going to be in the mix. Let's put it that way. He'll be in the mix. Is he going to win B block? I think it's a very good chance that he does. And I think these matches will help kind of amplify the fact that these matches are going to be great. So when a lot is on the line and people care, that makes for great pro wrestling. And I think we're all set up for these matches to make that happen.
And Chris, please.
The story that I see them telling with Tsuji is that he and Naito are the only people over 1 hour and 40 minutes of total ring time in the tournament right now, and they're within 10 seconds of each other. So it's almost like in an opposite way, they're also telling the same story with Tsuji, that maybe he's getting worn down, or on the Tsuji side of things, maybe he's getting stretched out. Kind of a peek behind the curtain piece, right? Maybe they're giving him longer and longer and longer in a bunch of sort of long matches, right? He's only had, he's gone over 20 just once, but everything's in that 18 to 20 range. So we're averaging well over 17 minutes a match for Tsuji, and there's only 2 dudes in this tournament that are that are above 17, and everyone else is really in that 13 to 15 range. So they're stretching him out for something. And I don't know if that's a long play or if that's just his general style, but that is sort of the story that I think that they're telling, and I don't see that going away with these last 3 matches either. I think they're going to be stretched out. I don't think any of them are going to go quickly. So curious to see where that story goes. But I think he's going to be a player, right? I find it hard to believe he's going to win the G1. Just because I don't think you give that big of a thing, winning the New Japan Cup and the G1 in the same year, to someone right now. But everyone gets a thing, and that could definitely be a thing. That would be a hell of a thing. But then it does make for an interesting run towards Wrestle Kingdom as well. So I skeptic, but I would love it. I'd be into it. I think it's a cool thing to get.
We've got Oleg Boltin, who's on 4 points. He lost to Tsuji and Finlay. Although I thought that Finlay match was notable for how long it went. And David Finlay gave Oleg a lot in that match. Didn't have to. I mean, that's a match I could have seen going like 6 or 7 minutes and being a pretty routine win for Finlay, but he really stretched that out and made Oleg look good there. And Oleg's final 3 matches are Jeff Cobb, Konosuke Takeshita, and Yuya Uemura. So sticking with you, Chris, what do you think about Oleg Boltin?
Really, I hope that I said from that the Bolton and Newman weren't here to just pick up goose eggs, and then they proved me right on night 1, which felt really great. And I've seen him progress in every match, and I think that's what this has been about for Bolton. And I think people have this perception that he's quote unquote more deserving than Callum Newman because he's a little older and he works a totally different style where he's not really mimicking anyone. But what I would really like to see Bolton do is like pick his style and just like dive into it. And I haven't necessarily seen that. So I'm curious to see what his last third looks like, but he has definitely shown up like he belongs. He's got the look. He gets a little more aura with every match. I'm curious if he's just going to like live in this sort of generic Hantai unit thing, or if they are going to, go with their worst instincts and just make him into big bad heel man. But I don't necessarily see that, especially until after they, work out whatever's going on with the Never Six titles. But he's been a welcome addition to the tournament, and I think it's been really interesting to see him. And I want to see him stretch out a little bit. And like, he's got the shortest average match length in the tournament right now, aside from Jake Lee. So I would like to see him get a little more time, but I don't necessarily see that happening over his back third here.
Josh.
Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed what Oleg Boltin brings to the table. I understand that, he's definitely a work in progress, much more so than, say, Callum Newman in the other block. But I think he's making a lot of progress. I do echo some of the same sentiments you had, Joel. I thought that David Finlay gave him quite a bit in that match, which was pretty awesome. That match very much reminded me of like Ric Flair guiding a young powerhouse like a Lex Luger or like a Sting through to a quality match. And at the end of the day, this is still just a building block and a learning experience for Oleg Boltin. I am wondering if there's going to be a big takeaway, like a big marquee win. That's why I'm kind of speculating that maybe he beats Jeff Cobb and potentially sets up like a TV title match for himself. That might be something, worth taking note that deep into the tournament. But other than that, I mean, he's been a joy to watch. I'm a big fan of big beefy guys, doing, power moves. So he might not be everybody's taste, but I think that that's something that's sorely lacking in New Japan these days, to have that kind of monster. And, sky's the limit with him. I do think he's going to probably lose to Uemura down the stretch.
Damon?
I think he loses more than he wins, but like I said, I know I lean on the dance partners in the last 3 matches, and they are sexy. Yuya, Jeff, and Takesha. I'm curious if New Japan even knows what they have in him and what they want to do with him. And truth be told, I don't even know if he knows what he has in him, right? When it comes to, not athletically, I mean, in pro wrestling landscape, like where would he fit in? Is he a middle of the road guy? Is he a guy that heels beat to further challenge for titles? Is he a never guy? Is he above that? I think the jury's still out. And I think it's okay. And I know that we don't want to give passes. But yeah, I mean, it is a first G1. I don't think anybody was expecting anything more than maybe 6 points at best. I'd be surprised if anybody did. He's got fucking like legitimate athletic talent. I just kind of want to see it kind of develop into more of what a pro wrestler can be, as opposed to I'm really athletic. 3 matches here that will, I don't know, it's not going to dictate his future by any stretch, but I think he can win more people on his side, and if they do give him a little bit more time, that would be in his best interest and everyone's best interest. And like I said, he's got guys that can go. So I don't know. I think the best is yet to come, especially when it comes to these last 3 matches.
And the last wrestler to discuss is El Phantasmo, who's got 4 points. He lost to Jeff Cobb. Then he beat Yuya Uemura, and his final 3 matches are Takeshita, Goto, and Finlay. So sticking with you, Damon, there's ELP Discourse is the second most tiring one next to the current Discourse. Scrumpy agrees with me. But yeah, ELP seems to be, I don't know if this is in all circles of the fandom or just the Jcast Discord, where a lot of people really seem to resent Phantasmo being in the tournament and think that he's by far one of the worst performers. How are you feeling about El Phantasmo?
Well, first of all, stop tugging on your cat's paw, please. Enough.
Oh no!
Oh no!
I don't know where you're getting off on this. So
check out my Instagram feed, guys.
On this day, look, I am a guy who invested heavily in the El Phantasmo, and it was my understanding that we would have a guy at this point that was on par with foreign talent in New Japan Pro Wrestling on the scale of, dare I say, the heights of Kenny Omega or a Will Ospreay or what have you. And that may have been unfounded on my part and people who communicated that they were sky high. Now, to be fair, it's not like he's had a million opportunities to shine in programs where, on a, dare I say, a secondary tag team title situation. And even before that. So it's not like there's been this whole plethora of opportunity. That being said, it is G1. All right? I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying, I'm selling, I'm holding. All I know is that I'm looking at the stock market and I see it fucking bottoming out. And I'm looking at my 401k as the money goes out the window.
Just like the Japanese Stock Exchange.
Exactly. I mean, us too. We fucking took a beating today. And I don't know what to make of that. Like, I don't know. Because what I see on one hand is a guy who is unbelievably talented, I feel that in my heart of hearts. And yet, I don't necessarily know of the guys that are in B block where he ranks. Let me take that back. I know where he ranks. He's not in the top half. And dare I say, he might not be in the top 2/3. So, what do we do? How much more rope do we give? How many chances do we afford? I don't know. I don't know. Do we cut our losses? Do we say, okay, maybe this wasn't what we thought? Maybe it is what we thought. Maybe it is exactly what we thought. Personally, I thought we had a blue chipper. And I don't know if I can look at B block and honestly say that there's one person in B block that has underperformed as much as El Phantasmo. And it pains me to fucking say it. So, there's that.
All right, Chris, although I think you're compromised on account of the name that you've given your child. But let's hear your thoughts anyway.
Yes, I had to disclose to El Phantasmo that I didn't actually name my child after him. But, her name is Riley. So, I with El Phantasmo, again, like what I'm looking at is that last match to give him something, right? That thing, right? And it all kind of goes back to Hantai versus Bullet Club and that whole kind of general layout that I think we're going to see in the tail end of the year. So I do think that Finlay match is really important. Anything up until then, he's doing a character thing. And I don't think it's landing with the people that we hoped it would land with, but I also think maybe he's getting the reaction he's trying to get too. So maybe it's building towards a big turn. I don't know. I don't have a good sense for where this is headed. It feels so out of place in the G1 though, because the G1 is where you're supposed to like ramp yourself up and get hyped, and Phantasmo's kind of doing the opposite. So curious what that last match looks like. Curious what his last three end up looking like. The aw shucks, I don't have any friends thing kind of doesn't land when Jato's still like coming out with him and stuff. Like I was surprised to see that he's not just like totally a solo guy now. So it's odd. And I don't have a read for where it's headed, but I hope he gets a thing, kind of like everyone else does.
And Josh.
Yeah, and that leaves it to me. So, he's got Finley, he's got Goto, and then who else does he have? The last guy looks like that's going to be Takeshita, and those are some really big matches with some big names. A lot of people talking about Takeshita and Goto potentially being the top performers in the block. So if there was ever a group of guys for him to kind of turn the tournament around and have some standout matches, those are the guys that you would expect him to do it with. Whether he gets the necessary wins to get him in contention or not, that remains to be seen. I am kind of the opinion that because like you guys, I don't understand what the story of his tournament is. We've seen guys that have had narratives like this that were more character based in the past, like Okada with the red hair comes to mind that year. The balloons. Jay White in his first G1 kind of also comes to mind, where it was a lot of character work and laying the groundwork of his character and everything like that. So it's not completely foreign, but I'm also wondering what it's leading to. If it's just, hey, we don't have creative for you, figure out something for yourself, and he's just biding his time until potentially he jumps ship. Maybe that's what's going on here. And if that's the case, that kind of reminds me of like Juice Robinson's last, G1, and maybe that's not so great.
Sorry to interrupt you. When you say jump ship, which other promotions do you think will be interested in hiring him?
Honestly, I mean, I feel like WWE would probably be the place for him to go more so than anywhere else. He's got connections there. He would probably do well on the NXT roster. He could go to AEW, but it feels a bit bloated there right now. So I'm not really sure that that's even something that's on the table for him. But, the story just came out recently this past week about WWE making an offer to Hinare, so it's not out of the question. I will say that I do disagree. I've seen a lot of people with a similar opinion to you, Damon, that he's not performing well in this tournament. And I think, yes, maybe he's not having the caliber of match that we know he's capable of, but I don't know. And it's weird because I'm not the biggest El Phantasmo fan. I've been kind of criticized in the past for being hypercritical of him, but I think he's having very good matches every night. Maybe I'm missing something, but I see the criticisms and everybody, very, very down on his work. And I've been kind of puzzled about it because I think he's really going out there and having very, very good matches. Maybe not upper echelon, but I feel like usually he's the kind of guy that dogs it a bit in the tournament and then turns it on the last few nights when it's really necessary. We saw him do that in the past with Will Ospreay, and he did that with Robbie Eagles in the Super Juniors before. So I'm anticipating with him having, Takeshita and Goto, that's what he's looking to do. Now, I don't know if he's going to make it into the block or into the knockouts like I have proposed, but he's beaten Finley on that final night. He's either going to play spoiler or he's going to replace him, one or the other. I feel very confident he's beaten Finley on that final night. Unless we're writing him off into the sunset and this is just a goodbye and he was just a placeholder in the tournament and everybody's outrage is, well placed, then, that would suck. This would all be for naught. But I kind of have to think that this creative is leading to something, and I think that's him beating Finley. I think that maybe that's not quite where people wanted him to be, given the upside of his talent and ability. But I don't think the company sees him as being a faction leader or a world title holder, but I do think that they could potentially see him as like a white belt level guy. And I think that's where we're headed next, is him and Finlay.
Right, final question for all three of you is, please give me your first, second, and third place finish in each of the blocks. Let's start with you, Josh.
Yeah, that is so tough, man.
Yeah, I know.
I think I've got Zach finishing first, and then it doesn't really matter who's second or third, but I think we've got Naito and Umino finishing, second and third. And then in the B block, I'm going to go with Takeshita finishing first, winning the block. And then I've got Tsuji and ELP. I don't even know if the math can actually work out that way, but that's kind of what I've got, them coming in as second and third.
Chris?
All right, A block, I've got Shingo, Shota, and Great Okan coming out. I think Okan beats Naito and goes through. I'm not looking at a scenario builder, which may be a thing that is on the internet soon. But I think that's all possible. I'm stalling so I can look at the B block, and I think coming out of the B block is going to be Takeshita, Tsuji, and Cobb, because I think Finlay gets bounced by El Phantasmo, and I think Cobb is just in such a strong position that I think he ends up going through somehow.
Damon?
I absolutely love the idea of Shingo going on for all the reasons that were discussed earlier. So I'll add him to the mix. I think Zach is in the mix. And I'll say, why not? I'll go with Naito in the mix. No. I want to, but I just don't want to fucking eat shit sandwiches. Thank you very much. Fine, I'll go Okan. I'll go whatever. B, I think Takeshita is in. I think Yuya is in, and I think Yoda is in. I think it's. I don't know how the math would play out, but to me, I feel like that. 10 points at Evil scares me to death. But again, if we're talking about him losing more than he wins, and fingers crossed. But yeah, I think that would be a fun final for both blocks.
Just like this podcast has been. We've got a lot of questions to get through. So I'm only joking. I'm not doing the question.
I was like, I don't know if we could do that.
I was like, no way. Can I just say one thing before we close? This might have been the most fun I've had with guests on the show. I just think you guys are smart and articulate and funny, and you got fucking handsome. Great opinions. What's that? Handsome too? Okay, I'll throw it in. So again, I really appreciate you guys coming on. It's been our pleasure, and I think we need to do this again soon, because this was, again, one of the most fun I've had. Most fun I've had with guests. So hats off to both you, Josh and Chris.
Well, thanks.
Yes,
I think
plugs, please.
We're just trying to save people some time, because the G1 is all about the G1, and now, I mean, specifically me, I don't have to listen to either of your shows, which is a tremendous time saver for me. And hopefully, by cutting basically the time that you spend listening to New Japan content in half by, having the super cast of Keeping It Strong Style and Super J-Cast, hopefully we've done the fans a service to create some space for them to enjoy the grade one, the tail end of the grade one climax. And their pick'em picks at g1.sportofprowrestling.com. Keep up on where you're at. Post screenshots. I'll retweet them. Blah, blah, blah. It's a real cool, kind of neat community that we've got going with the pick'ems going. You can search people's names, including I think everyone on this podcast, if you search Samsa, you will find my wife's pick'em. It is not good. It is not me. It's okay. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that. But yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a great time. I'm really glad we got to do this. And yeah, I echo the same sentiment. I think this was a really, really great time and a really great discussion about kind of the halfway / 2/3 point of this year's G1, which I think has been just a wonderful tournament. I hope we helped catch people up who are behind and give people a preview of what's to come, because I think it's going to be a good tail end here. So yeah, catch me on Twitter at the Chris Samsa, and keep an eye on Sport of Pro Wrestling. We might have a couple of new resources coming up soon if we can get our shit together.
Well, I would just like to say that I know that Damon thinks that I'm handsome, because when we were in New York, he told me he was going to give me a lap dance one night, and yes, that never happened. But I do want to say, though, the biggest disappointment I had on that trip was finding out that you guys went to karaoke and I did not get invited to that freaking.
I don't know. I think we got invited last minute. Blame John Carroll. That's all I have to say. Blame John Carroll for that one.
I can't blame John Carroll. I don't know John Carroll.
That's an evergreen statement. It's fine.
No, but since you guys are on it's dual audio, I mean, I'm going to be giving my plugs at the end of my show, but for the Super J Cast listeners, we're keeping it strong style. We're on every single social media platform. You can find us on anywhere where you listen to podcasts, and we're on YouTube. We're on everything. Patreon. You know where to look. All those places. Keeping it strong style. And if you guys could give us a couple plugs for the audience that might not be listening to you guys.
Joel, fire away.
They hate us already, John.
They already hate us.
They've got no interest in go and listen to the Super J-Cast.
Just, where to go. I mean, J-Cast, Super J-Cast everywhere. We're fucking... Joel runs everything. He's the man. He's the guy. He's the glue that keeps it together. So, yeah, we are what we are. So, whatever. If you hate us, I don't give a fuck. Hear this, Joel. Right.
You guys,
very good.
You guys are so negative. I'm sure there's a lot of crossover. Like, there's no way that we would know who is and isn't listening to what shows.
No, I mean, but again, as I said before, like, I think the best thing about the fact that we are who we are, you are who you are, and that connects with different people, and the fact that there is that option available, I love. And
only those two options. Let's be absolutely clear.
That is it. That's all you have. So yes, it's either fish or chicken. That's right. I had lasagna. All right. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Word salad not on the menu.
No, it's not. All right, Joe. Wrap this fucking thing up. We're going 3 hours. This is the longest show we've done in quite a while, and I'm exhausted.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
And we are back. So. I want to give a great big shout out and thank you to Joel, Damon from the Super J Cast. I've been listening to those guys for quite a while. I don't know if I've listened to every episode, but I think quite close to it at this point in time. And I mean, I've been listening to Damon going back to the Perocast days. And, Chris, always a pleasure to have him on the show as well. And really great discussion about the G1 climax up to this point and where we're at with things. Not too much to cover in the news. I wish I had a bit more of a professional, build out to everything the way that Jeremy does with the rundown. But a couple of things that are of note that took place this week. Mercedes Moné was announced to be appearing for New Japan at Capital Collision. So that's one of the bigger news stories. There was also a news story this week where Jeff Cobb was interviewed, and he made mention of the fact that Hanare was given an offer by WWE to sign with them earlier this year, and he rejected that offer to stick with New Japan. So that was something that was pretty noteworthy. I know there was a few other announcements for the NJPW Academy Showcase, as well as the Capital Collision match card. I would recommend checking out the full match cards that are announced up to this point. And because I don't want to keep you guys too much longer, I am going to jump into the questions here. I'm going to keep the answers as short and concise as possible. If there is any questions that broach on the same topic, I'm going to read them back to back for brevity's sake. And if there's anything that I feel like we may have covered on the podcast, recording with all four of us. I'll thank you for the question and then kind of move on. So without any further ado, we have Wukon 901 asking, at this point of the tournament, who has impressed you the most? Who has left you wanting more? On top of that, it's a little early, but who have you got for the finals? I'm betting Shota versus Tsuji, with the winner changing every day for me. Death Triangle 720 says, with the G1 almost reaching its end, who do you feel has upped their stock in the G1 so far? Rambone Slam Pig says, who has made the most of their opportunity this G1? In my mind, it has to be Gabe Kidd, who seems to be on another level from where we started at the beginning of the tournament. Thank you guys for those comments and those questions. Yeah, and the people that have impressed me the most really have been Goto has been one of those individuals. Takeshita has been one of those individuals. Really enjoyed the tournament that Gabe Kidd has had thus far. And I'm still waiting for a couple guys to turn it on as time goes on. As we're reaching the end, I'm still kind of banking on a Tsuji versus Zack Sabre Jr. final. I don't know that that's actually what's going to take place because this is a very unpredictable tournament, but that's sort of what I'm leaning towards in my mind, but I could definitely be wrong. And there's a few guys that have left me wanting more. I think Shota Umino is one of those individuals for sure, where I'm a little bit questioning things at this point in time. Narita is another guy. So we'll see how that all shakes out. Discord Daddy asked, he said, are you higher on any of the Reiwa Gen guys than you were before the G1? Similar. I've been talking for like 3 hours. What Reiwa wrestler have you gone down on? Gonna make it very clear, sir, I've not gone down on any of the wrestlers of any sort, of any generation, of any time. As far as the Reiwa Gen guys go, I think that there's been elevations for several of them in the tournament, but my opinion of them hasn't really changed one way or the other. I still have them kind of slotted in terms of my personal, fandom and enjoyment. I've got Tsuji at the top, then Uemura, then Umino, and then I would have Narita kind of at the bottom of the list right now, and that's sort of how their tournaments have played out. Death Triangle 720 says, do you think anyone has felt out of place in the tournament? And I would say Jake Lee by far. Jake Lee is the one guy where I just feel like doesn't need to be in the tournament, hasn't performed up to the level that the tournament, requires, and very much a disappointment. Craving Awesome 099 asked, everyone in this tournament has their own arc. Who has had the most compelling for you, and which one are you not really caring for? That's a tough question. I don't know if I'm connecting with anybody's individual story arc on that level thus far. If anything, I think Goto might be the most compelling story, with him sort of turning back the clock and showcasing what he's still capable of. In terms of stories I'm not really caring for, I would say definitely the Jake Lee story. I just, there's nothing for me to sink my teeth into. Yeah. The next question says, from Death Triangle 720 says, has any one of the matches in the G1, do any of the matches that have occurred feel like a potential rematch at Wrestle Kingdom 19? And, I've told you guys before, I feel like the winner's coming out of A Block. I feel like it's going to be Zack Sabre Jr. And I do kind of get the vibe that we might be seeing him and Naito again in the Dome. That's just kind of my opinion. There could be others. I'm not too sure on that, but that's one that I've got penciled in. Discord Daddy says, what's been most surprising to you about the G1 so far? Has it been the quality, the booking? And then Doc Bastard also asked similarly, man, the blocks are blown up. This might be the best G1 in 5 years. So what program do you think starts post G1? I think Finley versus Yuya. And I'm going to say with Finley, I think he's going to be more locked up with ELP, considering that those guys are, kind of tied together. And I've made mention of a few other programs that I think will take place during the recording session that I had with the JCast guys and Chris Samsa. And I think the tournament, because of the format and because of the way that everything is shaking out, it has been extremely hard to predict. And I found it exciting. Yes, there's been a lot of parity base, and yes, there hasn't been anyone that has really solidified themselves beyond the pack, but we're going into the final 6 days of tournament action, and you're going to see all that stuff get fleshed out, and I expect that to become pretty engaging from a narrative standpoint. Death Triangle 720 says, outside of the main event title, what can New Japan offer Takeshita to potentially join New Japan full time? Doc Bastard asked, can Takeshita please stay in New Japan? Acrobatic Ostrich 75 says, should President Tanahashi start having a conversation with Takeshita about staying, if he hasn't already, in New Japan? Halfway through this tournament, and it seems he fits this promotion like a glove, with several potential stories, ready-made programs in place, including a potential generational rival in Yuya Uemura. It would be a shame for him to leave this and go back to being a bit player again. And, I don't know that it's realistic that Takeshita would, forego a big money contract in AEW and sign with New Japan. But the door is wide open and the landscape is wide open for him to come in here and literally be the man. Kind of reminds me of the dark days when Takayama was able to kind of just, steamroll into New Japan and really make a name for himself. I don't want to say this is necessarily Inokiism dark days, but we're in a similar situation where they've been to an apex, business has come down, and we're in a transition, and a guy like him could easily step into that Okada slotting, even if it was just a temporary standpoint. And it's something to really consider, especially if it was just temporary, maybe a 2 to 5 year stint, and then go back to an AEW or go back to, or jump to WWE. That is the kind of landscape that we're in at this point in time. And I could see it potentially being a better long-term investment for him to come to New Japan, but I don't know what the business optics are. I don't know what they can offer him to make that a reality, but I would love that to happen. I think most people watching are in the same boat. The Real Kirby asked, in terms of match quality, where does Takeshita's G1 rank? And, I don't want to say it's this all-time legendary G1, because it's not. He's definitely having the best G1 run of anybody in the tournament at this current time. But when you think about some other guys' tournament runs in the past, even in the past, say 7 years, it's hard to put it on the same level as some of Ishii's runs or Ibushi's runs, or even like Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay, that sort of thing. But it's a very high quality so far, and he still has another good 3 matches and maybe some more block, knockout round matches if he qualifies for that as well. So it's a little too early to say exactly where it ranks, but it's up there. Less Commission 7252 says, what was the better match, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shingo Takagi or Hiroki Goto versus Konosuke Takeshita? I have a feeling not only is Takeshita the Wrestler of the Month for July, but will also be Wrestler of the Month for August. New Japan really needs to sign Konosuke once his contract is up with AEW. And I do think that the Takeshita Goto match was the superior match, not by a lot. I thought both were very, very good. And again, I hope that they are able to sign him. That would be the turnaround that New Japan really needs, because there are so many potential programs. And I think Takeshita being in the company raises the bar from a match quality standpoint to a level where it's definitely inspiring for all those Reiwa guys. It basically, pushes them to attain a goal that has kind of left with the absence of Okada. Death Triangle 720 says, do you think it would be a smart move to have Naito have one defense after the G1 and then rest up for the remainder of the year? And while narratively, I would love the idea of the champion having a wide array of title defenses following the G1, especially if they have a kind of a down year in terms of losses in the tournament. kind of like what Naito might be projected to have if you were to believe, Chris Samsa. At the same time, I just don't buy it, because every time I've expected in the past for something like this to happen, New Japan didn't abide by it. They usually just have the champion do the 1 October defense, usually at like what they call King of Pro Wrestling or Destruction or whatever they may call it this year. And then that's pretty much going to be it until January. I pretty much feel that way. And so I'm still projecting Naito to go into the block playoffs as either 2 or 3 and lose to his potential, title challenger for later in the year. Less Commission 7252 says, I asked last week if the company should take the belt off Naito before Wrestle Kingdom. I came to a thought that they really never changed the belt off the world champion for the past few years, because the tournament is in the summer. Wrestle Kingdom starts in the beginning of January. The last time they had the belt changed before Wrestle Kingdom was Tanahashi defeating Styles, so that they can run the biggest match of the company at the time, Tanahashi versus Okada, in the main event for the world title. Was there any point in those next 9 years that the company could have took the world title off of their top star before the biggest event of the year? And I will say potentially during the 2 double gold dash years that they had, those were both times where they could have potentially done that. All those years where they had multiple nights, you could have still ran the same matches and gotten there in a different way. Had they wanted to take the belt off Shingo at one point, or had they wanted to take the belt off of, I believe it was Okada the year prior. But most of the other more traditional years, I don't think so, because usually the match we were getting in all those years was the biggest match that was on the table. If you really think about it, I can go look at Wrestle Kingdom cards, from the past, couple 9 years or so. But, just jumping into it, like Wrestle Kingdom 11, you had Omega and Okada. I can't imagine anything else running that year. The following year, you had the huge Naito and Okada match. Wrestle Kingdom 13. Kenny and Tanahashi is an interesting one, because there's a lot of other things they could have done, but the politics at the time with Kenny leaving the company and everything like that, that's definitely one where there's some potential there for them to have done something different. But once you start getting to Wrestle Kingdom 14 and 15 and the double gold dashes and the Naito years and everything like that, and Wrestle Kingdom 16, things kind of change quite a bit. So I wish I had a better answer where I could say this is a definitive match they should have done, but New Japan usually does a pretty good job providing the biggest marquee money match that they possibly can for Wrestle Kingdom. Staleburger Bun asks, who's been your favorite wrestler on English commentary so far? Less Commission 7252 says, thoughts on Gabe doing commentary on both nights 8 and 10. I liked him on night 8, but on night 10 it started to get unbearable just a bit. I was annoyed of how many times he was telling Walker to shut up. I only enjoyed him glazing up to Finlay and actually supporting Goto to defeat a AEW guy in Takeshita. My favorite part of him was during the El Phantasmo versus Jeff Cobb match. I love the line where he said, imagine Jado as your only friend. I'd be depressed too. That's pretty funny. I've honestly got to tell you the truth. I haven't loved Gabe Kidd or Finlay on commentary, and that's because of the heavy character work that's being presented during the commentary. I think there's a fine line there where you interweave and kind of separate yourself from the character when you're on commentary for it to really be effective. And when you're in character for that long a period of time on a show, I don't think it's a benefit to the show, and it's not necessarily the greatest viewing experience, honestly. Lagoon the Worst asks, what do you think is missing that would make David a more credible leader? This is my first time really getting into New Japan, and David Finlay does not give leader vibes at all. Gabe seems more fitting for that role all around. Discord Daddy says, has your view of Finlay's New Japan ceiling changed at all given his performance so far? And I'll tell you guys, no, it really hasn't. And it is hard for me to engage with him as being the true leader of the Bullet Club at this point in time. I don't know what needs to... I'll tell you what needs to change. And this is going to sound so maybe absurd coming from a non-worker, but if he were to start to have in-ring performances that were undeniable and of an upper echelon, even with the character work attached to it, then that's what would change things. But at this current time, even though he's having good matches and he's having good character work, I just don't connect with what he's doing, what he's presenting on the screen, and I just don't believe him as a tip-top guy in New Japan, for better or for worse, unfortunately. And that really hasn't changed. Rambone Slam Pig asked, any thoughts on Shota Umino's week after a tough start in the tournament? I feel like he's been doing better and is more in line with what I would expect from him. And I feel like he had a stronger week a couple weeks ago when he had the match with Gabe Kidd and some of those other performances. But right now, I feel deeply uninspired by some of the matches that we've seen from him in the past week, and I'm not necessarily jiving with that. Rambone Slam Pig also asked, is Jake Lee going back to Noah soon? They can have him. And, there is that theory that people think he's not actually signed to New Japan. He's not actually a War Dog. This is all kind of a storyline. He's going to find his way back to Noah when things are all said and done. And I'm kind of inclined to think that there's some smoke to that fire. Stale Burger Bun says, Goto makes a perfect gatekeeper for the young guys. Do you think he should win a singles title post G1? Wit89 says, with lots of veterans being cut from the tournament this year, do you think Goto will be in next year's G1 after his performance so far? I think he deserves to be. And Hawaiian Punch BV says, with Goto beating Takeshita, can we get a KOD openweight title run for Goto, since he won't be getting one of the IWGP heavyweight titles? I'm right there with you guys. I echo the same sentiments, and we heaped tons of praise on Goto earlier in this episode. Less Commission 7252 says, who will beat AEW's Hiroki Goto to never win AEW's World Championship? That's a tough call, but if I were just kind of guessing right now, I would say either Sammy Guevara or Jungle Boy, Jack Perry. Somewhere Rich Latta is listening to this and he thinks I'm insane, but I think I'm right on that one. Rod Easter asked, what is your take on what's going on with the artist informally known as Chaos? Are they going the path of Great Bash Heel or what? Also, he said, don't forget to shout out the page. So Rod Easter is a administrator for an NJPW group on Facebook. If you literally just look up NJPW, his group should pop up, and they're on Facebook, and that's a great place where people have lots of lively discussion. And if you're on Facebook, I highly recommend them. They are gracious enough to allow us to post on there sometimes and ask questions. So good on them. And yeah, with Chaos at this current time, unless something drastic happens, it kind of feels like they are on the way of like Blue Justice Army or Great Bash Heel, where they're just kind of fizzling out. And I would hope that maybe there's some money to be made with the story, but it doesn't appear to be the case. Last couple questions. Hawaiian Punch BV says, thoughts on Terrence Crawford's performance this past weekend. How do you think he'll do against Canelo? Do you think he wants the fight because he can beat him, or cashing out for that big payday? And yeah, I thought Terrence he looked like a fighter that took a year off. I don't think he won that decision, to be honest. I think that was a gift decision. And I think if that guy shows up to fight Canelo, he's in trouble. And I think he loses that fight. And I do think it's interesting that, he's had this whole year. He could have been fighting guys. He could have been doing, other things. And maybe he was just negotiating the Canelo fight and it all fell through. But, I would have liked to see him in Boots Ennis fight. That didn't happen. He's chasing the Canelo fight. Canelo doesn't seem to want to fight anybody of note either. So yeah, I don't know. But Terrence Crawford didn't look like the fighter he looked like a year ago. To be granted, he fought a very awkward and skilled fighter. But I also don't know if 154 is a good weight for Terrence. I feel like it might be too big for him. I think about like Floyd. When Floyd jumped to 154, he still looked like Floyd. But Terrence, just based off this one view, he did not look like Terrence Crawford of old. So we'll see. And Hawaiian Punch BV's last question, he says, with Aaron Wolf not medaling in solo judo and only walking out with the silver in mixed team judo in the Olympics, do you expect NJPW to go into hard recruiting mode for Wolf? And for those of you that don't know, Aaron Wolf is a guy that is loosely aligned with New Japan. One of their prospects, they sort of have a pipeline between judokas as well as amateur wrestlers for Team New Japan, and Aaron Wolf is one of those guys that is sort of in their scope. And I think they're probably going to be a little bit disappointed that he didn't do as well during the Olympics as people had sort of anticipated. But since that occurred, that might be a positive in the sense that maybe they can, bring him into the dojo, give him the same treatment as they did for Oleg Bolton, and kind of get him in the system so that they can start, moving him through that system and get him ready for, joining New Japan. Last thing I'll talk about, I know we're a little bit out of order, but we've got a few more nights of action over the next week. We've got about 5 nights of action, and I'm going to go over those cards very, very briefly. On the 6th of August, we have night 11. So by the time you're listening to this may have already occurred, but we've got Great O'Khan versus Callum Newman, Jake Lee versus Gabe Kidd, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Evil, Tetsuya Naito versus Shota Umino, and Shingo Takagi versus Sonata in the main event. For me, the match that stands out there is Naito and Umino. We've seen them stink it up in the past, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see what Naito and Umino are capable of doing with one another, especially since a lot of people sort of have that match slotted as a potential Tokyo Dome main event. So we'll see where that goes. On August the 7th, so the next day, from Korakuen Hall, we've got Jeff Cobb versus Oleg Bolton, El Phantasmo versus Konosuke Takeshita, Hanari versus Yota Tsuji, Ren Narita versus Yuya Uemura, and then the main event, Hiroki Goto versus David Finlay. People that really support Goto, they're probably hoping he beats Finlay and gets himself in contention for a white belt shot. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think the ELP Takeshita match is one to really look out for. And I'm calling upset alert on Oleg Bolton versus Jeff Cobb there. The following evening, August the 8th, so we're back to back to back. We've got Naito versus Callum Newman, Sonata versus Great O'Khan, Jake Lee versus Shota Umino, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Gabe Kidd, and Shingo versus Evil. I think that Zack versus Gabe Kidd match looks very, very interesting on paper. This might not be the greatest night top to bottom, but Shingo and Evil, they've got a lot of history deep into G1, and that's probably going to be a pretty important match in terms of tiebreakers. August 10th from ZBO Arena in Sendai, Konosuke Takeshita versus Oleg Bolton, Hanari versus Ren Narita, Goto versus ELP, David Finlay versus Jeff Cobb, and Yota Tsuji versus Yuya Uemura. I think Tsuji versus Uemura at the main event, that is a make or break match for both of those guys and probably going to be a standout match of the tournament. And then finally, we will be recording next week on August the 12th. Jeremy will be back from his anniversary. And oh, by the way, happy anniversary, Jeremy. I know it's the end of the show, but congratulations to you and your lovely bride. Evil versus Shota Umino, Naito versus Great O'Khan, Shingo versus Jake Lee, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Sonata, and Gabe Kidd versus Callum Newman. And we don't know what the order of that evening is going to be, but those are the final A block matches. And I am anticipating seeing, I think Zack goes through, I think Naito goes through, and I think Umino goes through. I think those are going to be the big meaningful wins and matches on that night. So thank you guys for listening. We're going to close out the show here. And I usually don't do the close to the show. I usually leave that to Jeremy. So let me pull up what I need here. So next week we'll be back to review G1 Climax 34, nights 11 through 15. Remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign up at patreon.com/KIStrongStyle. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keepin' It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media. On X, follow us at KIStrongStyle, at Social Suplex, and at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/socialsuplex and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, Jeremy is the Pro Black Guy. I am Keepin' It Strong Style. On YouTube, we're at Social Suplex. Join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows on the network, including One Nation Radio with Rich Latta and James Boyd, All Things Elite with Willie Johnson and Austin Sumowitz, Imp's WWE Adventure with The Implications, Matthew Mayer, Wrestling Art with Chris Things, Tunnel Talk with Ali, Ann, and Leah, the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating and review. We'll catch you next week on Keepin' It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts. Ichiban.